Moments later, the boy boldly and somewhat rudely demanded to know who he was. And then he replied with an arrogant tone, "You insignificant adventurers of Barcelona, you haven't even had the honor of meeting me. And the lords of the neighboring cities are even more unaware of my existence." Hearing this, Lut couldn't help but reveal a surprised expression, thinking to himself, the lord of a neighboring city? Could it be that this man is the mysterious lord who rules Golan, the one whose face no one has ever seen? Noticing the astonishment clearly etched on the boy's face, he gritted his teeth in fury and roared, You dare destroy my new labyrinth. It rightfully belongs to me." But Lut firmly retorted, "Last I checked, the newly discovered Abelio labyrinth is the common property of everyone." The Lord of Golan sneered with a contemptuous look and growled, "That labyrinth lies on the border between Bologna and Golan. But you greedy fools deliberately excluded us and used the excuse that something unusual was happening inside." But it didn't stop there. He also caused a massive surge of monsters to ravage the entire labyrinth. The profits we should have earned from the labyrinth, along with the severe losses to the surrounding territories caused by the monster horde. How do you intend to compensate us? He finished speaking and lunged towards him. Immediately, Alicia intervened. "Please calm down. Matters like these need to be discussed peacefully between representatives of each guild. And as far as I'm aware, there haven't been any reports of monsters encroaching on Gola territory. Furthermore, there are confirmed reports that some adventurers from Barcelona have resolved the situation. So who allowed this insignificant nobody to speak up here?" The Gola lord gritted his teeth in fury, his words caught in his throat. At the same time, Lut glanced at her with a satisfied look and thought to himself, truly the demeanor of an S-rank adventurer. She's really good at handling things. Just then, the Gola guild master suddenly spoke up. "I can't believe that's actually true. Alicia of the 6th Violent Storm actually joined Bologna." Then he pondered. Come to think of it, with her level, she must have been weakened by the curse of the Abyssal Labyrinth. So it's not surprising that someone like her would choose a place like Bologna to settle down. Seeing him, Lut was startled and thought to himself, "That bastard, if I remember correctly, he's the Gola guild master. Moreover, his tone is laced with sarcasm and mockery. This isn't something that lowly adventurers have the right to interfere in." Hearing the Gola guild master say this, Lord Gola's face was filled with smug satisfaction. He didn't stop there. He stepped closer to Alicia, his voice dripping with menace. "You're just a lucky survivor," he sneered. "The only useless one left from a group that was slaughtered. You'd better stay out of it. Trash." He finished, his words stinging. Alicia was stunned into silence for a moment. Then she erupted in a furious display of magic. Guildmaster Gola was both shocked and incredulous. I'm being suppressed," he stammered. "How can I be threatened by a girl demoted to rank 45? Meanwhile, unable to bear the humiliation, Lord Gola roared, "Stop this!" But the shame was too much. Alicia was consumed by rage. In that moment, Lancaster appeared and spoke. "I will not tolerate any further disturbances in my assembly. Lord and Guildmaster, this way please." Furthermore, out of respect for Lancaster, she has withdrawn her magic. However, the Guild Master of Gola still wouldn't let the opportunity to mock Alicia pass. "You should teach your dog some manners." Hearing this, Lutz snarled, "Is this guy crazy?" Alicia calmly stuck out her tongue, mocking him. Suddenly, a young man approached and called out, "Alicia, do you remember me?" Before her stood a handsome, an elegant young man in shining knight's armor. Lutz's face contorted in annoyance. "Another one? What's going on?" Alicia hesitated for a moment, then softly said, "Ebert," recognizing his old acquaintance. Ebert excitedly grabbed Alicia's hand, happily replying, "So, you still remember me?" Then he looked surprised and asked, "You know him?" She quickly replied, "He's an old acquaintance from my previous group. We used to go on adventures together." He continued, reminiscing with Alicia. "Back then, AS The Chosen was a group I truly admired. You, the one who could control multiple magic spirits simultaneously, and the way you carried yourself, you were a true genius. Like you, I couldn't help but see you as my inspiration, my idol. And then, what happened to you in the Abyssal Labyrinth? I know how much you suffered. That's why I came to Bologna. Alicia, will you join my group?" Ebert, just like that, held her hand and pleaded with Alicia in a sincere voice. Ebert is confessing his feelings to her. "Alicia, will you join my group?" Alicia stared at the person before her, astonishment evident on her face. Meanwhile, Lute wore a clear expression of annoyance. Amidst the tense atmosphere, Ebert maintained his smile, patiently awaiting Alicia's response. After a moment of contemplation, she cheerfully replied to Ebert's offer with a polite refusal. "I truly appreciate your invitation," she said, "but I've already formed a new team. You see, let me introduce you to my teammate." The young man quickly introduced himself. "I'm Lute, pleased to meet you." "It's a pleasure to meet you too," Alicia replied. However, the smile on her lips vanished, replaced by a look of horror. She screamed as she saw Lute's hand. Rage left Ebert nearly speechless. At the same moment, Ebert took Alicia's hands in his, gently comforting her. "I've heard about the misfortune that befell you in the abyssal labyrinth, about how you were cursed. But even so, it's hard to believe that an S-rank adventurer, enraged by his condescending attitude, shouted, 'Ebert, you—'" Meanwhile, he was focusing all his attention on Alicia. Then, with a cheerful tone, he said, "You're in a situation where you have to cooperate with someone people call the Taint Cleanser. If you join my team instead of staying here, I guarantee that we can maximize your skills and experience." The moment he finished speaking, she suddenly pulled her hand away, to Luan's astonishment. Not only that, but Alicia angrily shouted at Ebert, "Hey, don't talk about things you don't understand. I volunteered to form a team with Lut. Any insult directed at him is an insult to me, but thank you for your concern anyway. The curse on me has been lifted." And then he was a little flustered when he saw her sudden outburst. Immediately, Ebert rushed to explain to Alicia, "But it's a curse from the SS rank Abyssal Labyrinth, and it originates from the floor guardian himself." However, she completely ignored his explanation. "I just had a fated encounter." Ebert persistently continued, "From the beginning, things shouldn't have been like this." But his enthusiasm was only met with indifference from Alicia. Not only that, but she winked at Jia Hugh and whispered, "Luke will be in big trouble if his ability is exposed. So, keep this a secret, okay?" Jia Hugh quickly understood and responded with sincere gratitude. After that, the two left, leaving Ebert standing there all alone. As she walked, Alicia said to Luke, "All right, we need to update your ranking now. You're no longer a D rank. You've been promoted to C rank." At this moment, Ebert could only silently watch their backs as they gradually disappeared. A second later, he held his face in sadness and wondered, why? Why is it like this? This whole time, my mind has been haunted by Alicia. That bastard, the so-called Eradicator. I'm certain he's manipulating Alicia, controlling her for his own purposes. From the start, a lowly D rank like him, how could he possibly have the strength to defeat a powerful tainted dragon? It's absurd. But if the curse on Alicia was truly broken, then everything changes. The one who truly defeated that monster was Alicia, which means that Eradicator is just trying to steal her credit. He's despicable. At that moment, Lute suddenly glanced towards him and noticed something unsettling in Ebert's gaze. He quickly turned to her and said, "Hey, that guy just now, he was staring at me like he wanted to eat me alive. It was creepy." Alicia just sighed softly and replied, "Elves are a very arrogant race. Many of them hold deep prejudices against other races, and those prejudices have only deepened over time because the curse of immortality has trapped them in solitude for so long." After listening to Alicia's explanation, Lute suddenly stared at Alicia, causing her to exclaim in surprise, "What?" He smirked and replied, "It's just, I'm an elf too. I was just wondering if you're also the type of person who's full of prejudice and as arrogant as they are." Alicia was puzzled by Lute's question. So she asked, "What are you talking about?" "I'm very humble, intelligent, and charming for an elf, you know." Seeing Alicia suddenly cheerful, Lute thought to himself, seems like she's quite conceited. When they arrived at the reception desk, the receptionist spoke up, "Welcome, you two. I've heard the whole story from the guildmaster. However, this is an extremely rare event." She finished her sentence, then suddenly handed Lute a piece of paper. Lute looked confused. However, as soon as he took the paper and glanced at its contents, her face was etched with surprise. The receptionist added, "You've been granted special permission to skip rank C and advance directly to rank B." Lute exclaimed excitedly, "Amazing." A moment later, the receptionist continued, "This should give you an idea of just how challenging the mission in the Abelio Labyrinth was, how difficult it truly is. We've also received reports from the adventurers in the village you rescued. So your defeat of the 3 Baphomets has been officially recognized." Overwhelmed with joy, Lute stammered, I'm rank B right now. Magnus approached him, sighed, and said, "You should be a little more excited. Everyone in that town is incredibly grateful to you." Rigurd appeared beside Magnus. Seeing them, Luke called out their names. "Magnus! Rigurd!" Alicia chimed in, reminding him, "Don't get complacent just because you reached rank B, because your goal is..." Hearing Lute's sigh of relief, he responded with a smile, "You're right." Unable to contain his excitement, Lute shouted with joy. Immediately afterward, he exclaimed proudly, "Finally!" Alicia and Lute said in unison, their voices filled with enthusiasm. To become prestigious S-rank adventurers, they declared together, "Let's keep moving forward." But then, Ebert suddenly appeared before them once again. As soon as they heard the familiar footsteps, the group turned around in unison, their eyes fixed on the figure behind them. Ebert then spoke, mocking Lute with a sarcastic tone. "Do you really think such foolish behavior," he said with contempt, "can be forgiven?" Lute could only respond with a surprised expression, stammering. Ebert continued, his tone becoming sterner. "The amount of information you can access about dungeons depends on your rank. This is an unbreakable rule," he emphasized, "established to ensure the safety of all adventurers. Yet someone who only knows how to hide behind others for their own benefit," Ebert said indignantly, "is granted B rank? Is the Bologna Guild full of idiots?" Immediately after, Rigurd and Magnus glared at Ebert with looks of disgust and contempt. Meanwhile, the members of the Ebert Guild responded with defiant and arrogant stares. Lutz felt bewildered by Ebert's blatant insult. He couldn't understand why he would do such a thing. Just as the tension reached its peak, the receptionist intervened. "Regardless of what you think, the decision to promote to rank B rests solely with the guilds," she emphasized. Magnus stepped closer to Ebert, looked at him coldly, and said, "Hey, can you take back what you just said? Unless you want trouble." The atmosphere became tense. Both sides were ready to brawl. Suddenly, Ebert smirked and continued to provoke them. "Seems like I was right. You guys really are a bunch of idiots." As soon as he finished speaking, Magnus immediately grabbed Ebert by the collar and roared furiously, "You bastard!" However, Alicia managed to stop Magnus just in time. "Stop it!" In a flash, Ebert powerfully slammed Magnus backward, sending him crashing to the floor, groaning in excruciating pain. Before Magnus could recover and get up, Ebert swiftly plunged his sword into the floor right next to him, filling him with utter terror. Immediately after, Ebert coldly issued a warning. "Don't touch me with your filthy hands." Witnessing this, Alicia furiously shouted, "Ebert, stop it!" Without hesitation, Ebert sheathed his sword and replied to Alicia in a low voice, "You're always so kind, always willing to extend a helping hand to someone as desperate as him." Alicia retorted that it was a grave mistake. Ebert tried to appear sincere in response to Alicia's words. "I know our elven kind are conservative and arrogant. I understand that myself. I'm not one to easily change my mind. Once I've set my mind to it, someone like me, with my humble knowledge and deadly elven charm, must guide him down the right path." The moment he heard those words, the very same words Alicia used to say, Lute burst out laughing. Leaving Ebert bewildered, he demanded, "What are you laughing at?" Meanwhile, Lute thought to himself, "They're so arrogant." After a moment, the arrogant Ebert continued, "Now I understand. Incompetent adventurers become a danger to others. I will test you. Let's see if you're truly worthy of rank B." With that, he pointed his sword at Lute. Witnessing Ebert's outrageous behavior, the receptionist angrily shouted, "Hey, how dare you decide things on your own?" Alicia simply replied, "Enough." Surprisingly, she agreed to Ebert's challenge. "If you doubt Lute's abilities," she said, "then see for yourself." Later, at the Bologna Guild's training grounds, Alicia suddenly expressed remorse to Lute. "I'm sorry, this is all my fault." However, Lute didn't blame her. "It's not your fault," he said. "This happened because of my weakness. But what I need to do now is defeat that examiner," Lute affirmed, "and prove that I'm worthy of you. Right? After all, adventurers are just people who rely on strength to silence others." Lute was brimming with confidence. He was certain he could defeat the opponent before him. At the Bologna Guild's training grounds, everyone was focused on the duel between Ebert and Lute. Alicia suddenly made a proposition. "If either of you is seriously injured, I should intervene and stop this match immediately." However, both fighters have their weapons drawn and are ready to clash. Lute's eyes now show unusual determination, but Ebert looks at him with contempt and disdain. The next moment, The match referee loudly declares the start, and then Ebert surprisingly launches the first attack. Lute calmly observes, studying his opponent's attack patterns. He successfully blocks a powerful sword strike from Ebert. Seeing this, Ebert mocks, "You blocked that? You seem to have some skill after all." Ebert immediately steps back, preparing for his next attack. This second attack carries far greater power than the last, continuously forced into a defensive position. Lute thinks to himself, "He's superior to me in swordsmanship." He suddenly remembers Alicia's words. He uses not only offensive magic, but also enhancement magic to increase his strength in battle. "A magic swordsman," Lute exclaims internally. Lost in thought, he suddenly vanished without a trace. The event unfolded so quickly that Lute was left bewildered, thinking to himself, "He's gone." In a flash, Ebert appeared right behind Lute. In the blink of an eye, a sharp blade slashed down on Lute's back, causing him to scream out in agony. Despite inflicting the wound, Ebert seemed unsatisfied. His expression was filled with frustration and annoyance. Lute turned to face Ebert, mumbling with a bewildered mind. "My eyes couldn't even keep up with his speed. I wanted to counterattack with my skills, but... Before he could finish, Ebert abruptly spoke. "My rank is B. Only AIs possessing power at this level are worthy of bearing that title. Do you understand now? You're not even worthy of the B rank title." Always vying for a position by Alicia's side. After hearing those words, Lute lowered his head with a melancholic expression and replied, "You're right. With my current abilities, I'm not worthy to stand beside Alicia. But you have to understand that Alicia chose me. So I will prove to you that I will become worthy to be by her side." Hearing this, Alicia breathed a sigh of relief. Ebert looked at Lute with resentment. Moments later, Lute quickly utilized his magic. In the blink of an eye, a gigantic stone hand hurtled towards Ebert. Witnessing this, Ebert immediately cast his magic and roared, "You fool! Do you really think you could defeat me in a magic duel?" Now the stone hand clashed against a raging inferno. An earth-shattering explosion erupted. All who witnessed it were utterly terrified. They began to whisper amongst themselves, "Whoa, things are getting intense." Ebert responded with chilling confidence. "Pity the fool tasked with purging evil." He then conjured a massive ice sphere, suspending it in midair. He roared, "This is the difference in our power." With that, Ebert launched the ice sphere towards Lewin. He propelled the massive sphere with tremendous force. However, the moment the ferocious magic touched Lewin's sword, it became strangely gentle. Furthermore, Lewin's sword absorbed it completely, leaving Ebert to gasp in shock. "What the?" Lewin, not missing a beat, said, "I knew you'd use magic against me. After all, elves are a proud and noble race, aren't they?" As Lewin spoke these words, his sword erupted in a fiery blaze. In a flash, to Ebert's astonishment, the young man lunged forward with blinding speed. He swung his sword, a blur of sharp strikes aimed directly at Ebert. In the midst of the fierce sword fight, Ebert thought to himself, his speed and power are completely different from before. He also said the sword in his hand is a magic sword. Could it be true? Ebert wondered, but Lute denied it. "This is the Black Sword," Lute declared, leaving Ebert stunned. "Black Sword? What a strange name," Ebert exclaimed in confusion. Just then, the magic circle on his hand glowed brightly. Another question popped into Ebert's head. Is this the reason Alicia shouldn't stay by his side? But Lute offered a different explanation, spellblade technique. Suddenly, Ebert lowered his stance. While focusing his energy, the young man taunted his opponent. "You'll never be able to match my speed." Enraged, Ebert unleashed a magical attack towards Lute. This action caused everyone to worry for Lute's safety. In the blink of an eye, Ebert lunged forward and delivered a powerful punch to Lute's stomach, causing him to cry out in pain. Not stopping there, Ebert continued his assault, bringing his thunderstaff down on Lute, unleashing a fierce bolt of lightning. The onlookers held their breath, fearing for Lute's fate. After recalling his magic, Ebert taunted Lute. "You're nothing special. Alicia, declare the winner." As Ebert uttered these words, he was certain that Lute was completely incapacitated, but Ebert was wrong. Suddenly, Lute grabbed Ebert by the collar, leaving him utterly astonished. Lute calmly said, "I'm sorry, but your thunderstaff doesn't work on me." It turned out that some abnormal status had been nullified on Lute. Ebert roared in frustration. "This is unbelievable. You should have been completely paralyzed after being hit by that much lightning. That was an insane amount." And before Ebert could recover, Lute suddenly charged forward and headbutted Ebert right in the face, sending a spray of blood from his nose. Lute roared in fury, then rolled on the ground, screaming uncontrollably. Less than a second later, Lute suddenly slammed his sword into the ground right next to Ebert's neck. This action made Ebert grit his teeth in anger. Lute casually said, "Sorry, but I've become immune to a lot of things lately. You see." Magnus looked at Lute with a bright smile. Rigurd couldn't hide the astonishment on his face. Alicia seemed very pleased. Finally, Alicia declared the tug-of-war over and congratulated Lute. Meanwhile, Lancaster was in a meeting with the guild master and the Lord of Gola in his private office. Lancaster spoke formally. "The feudal lord is currently on official business in the capital. I've been authorized to act as deputy commander and handle all matters in his stead." The lord nodded slightly and replied, "I understand." Without pausing, Lancaster continued, "I'm fully aware of Gola's requests. Because we are in charge of operations and management, we intend to fully cooperate with you in mitigating the losses that you have suffered." After listening to these words, the Lord of Gola responded with dissatisfaction. "As I said, we demand compensation, not cooperation. We demand adequate reparations, a sum worthy of the ownership of the labyrinth. That belongs to us. You're too greedy and taken more than you deserve. Now you will all pay a heavy price." Just at that tense moment, she suddenly burst through the door. With a panicked expression, she exclaimed, "I apologize for the interruption." Immediately, the Gola chairman turned and asked, "What is it? Why did you enter without knocking?" She hurriedly replied, "Sir, this is an emergency. Bricks are levitating, as if pulled upwards by some invisible force. Something strange is happening at the newly constructed Abelio labyrinth. 2 glowing red orbs are emitting arcane lightning bolts, confirming that the labyrinth has completely collapsed. Within those ruins, 2 monstrous creatures with ferocious eyes stand guard." Back in the present, the flustered secretary reported, "The area surrounding the labyrinth is being engulfed by an immense amount of magical energy. Unprecedented levels. It has reached Code B." Lancaster exclaimed in astonishment, "This is unbelievable." The secretary continued, 2 GA Goi monsters are guarding the entrance, preventing any intervention. A letter arrives from outside, causing Lancaster to pause in thought amidst the lavish banquet. This hardly seems the time for petty squabbles. Suddenly, both the Lord and the Guild Master speak out in unison, condemning this selfish pettiness. "Let's not waste any more time," he declares. Lancaster makes a swift decision. "We will assemble an expeditionary force and proceed immediately into the newly discovered Abelio labyrinth to investigate this matter. Summon all adventurers rank B and above. Call Lute as well." Lute is summoned, brimming with excitement and anticipation. Moments later, all eligible adventurers are assembled, fully armed and ready to depart. The best and brightest have gathered here. Siomon and Chrissy's team are among the formidable ranks. They're filled with enthusiasm and determination. Now, let's assess the current situation. We've just confirmed that the labyrinth cycle has officially begun. We need to head to the Abelio labyrinth immediately to get the situation under control as soon as possible. Lute leaned in close to Alicia and whispered curiously, "What's the labyrinth cycle?" Seeing his confusion, she explained, "It's a rare phenomenon that causes the labyrinth to evolve on its own. It's incredibly rare, so I've only heard about it a few times." As she finished, Alicia's expression turned serious. "This time, it might be caused by the collapse of another labyrinth. This is the first time I've witnessed it firsthand." She rested her chin on her hand and continued, "What's more concerning is the magic density around the labyrinth has reached level B. But we're rank B2, Lute spoke up. Plus, we have an A rank with us. So, it shouldn't be a problem, right?" A heavy sigh from behind suddenly caught Lute's attention. He turned to look. It was Ibiot, walking towards their group. He crossed his arms, a condescending smirk on his face, as he spoke mockingly. "This is understandable, since you were just recently promoted to D rank. But it seems you're underestimating the severity of the current situation." Lute, on the other hand, looked confused and asked, "What's wrong with you?" At this moment, Ebert immediately and seriously explained the gravity of the situation. If the magic density around the labyrinth reaches B rank, it means that inside the labyrinth, the minimum magic density is at least A rank. In a worst-case scenario, it could even reach S rank. Alicia also understood the problem. She envisioned a giant labyrinth constantly expanding. And from what we know, this labyrinth is evolving like a cocoon forming. Once this cocoon hatches, the surface will be flooded with magic power. And because Gola and Bologna are both nearby, the possibility of a catastrophic disaster is very high. Hearing them say that, Lute imagined such a bleak scenario that he fell silent. However, a warm hand unexpectedly landed on his shoulder, offering comfort. Don't worry too much. Lancaster stepped forward, calmly analyzing the situation. The labyrinth cycle is an incredibly rare phenomenon, he said, and it still holds countless undiscovered mysteries. It's quite possible all these worries are unnecessary. He looked at Lute with eyes filled with hope and strong belief. Because you're the one who successfully conquered the initial labyrinth, I will entrust Andrew and everyone to you. Hearing these encouraging words, Lute immediately regained his confidence. Alicia also turned to him with an encouraging smile. The scenery abruptly changed. Towering cliffs rose high under the scorching sun. Before the imposing dungeon entrance, two colossal beasts stood guard, radiating a terrifying aura. From afar, the adventure party observed the situation, quietly watching. Everyone was on high alert, ready to respond to any situation. Lute suddenly used a special skill, his eyes flashing with a burning light. Appraisal. Immediately, the beast's status screen and stats appeared before his eyes. He quickly turned and informed Alicia. They're a bit stronger than the roller bugs. Suddenly, the small stone from the AI's leg leaped into the air, causing a massive explosion. The two beasts, sensing the tremor, whipped their heads around with wary expressions. Terror welled up inside them as they exclaimed, "Damn it!" The two demon dragons immediately shot towards everyone, opening their ferocious maws wide. Immediately after, a torrent of flames erupted forth. Petrifying breath. Alicia swiftly summoned the Shin Fi spirit. The two energy attacks collided violently, creating immense pressure. Everything around them was obliterated. Those who witnessed her incredible power gasped in astonishment, giving them no time to rest. The other dragon lunged forward, hurtling towards the remaining adventurers with blinding speed. The monster roared, its jaws open, preparing to unleash its attack. But suddenly, a punch of earth-shattering force descended from above, plunged down towards the colossal monster. It turned out Lancaster had delivered a fatal blow, sending the monster crashing headfirst into the ground. After landing the hit, he let out a mocking taunt. The insectoids witnessed their comrade's demise, and a female demon immediately charged forward in a frenzy of revenge. The guild leader, standing nearby, simply smiled faintly. Then, with a single, effortless swing, he sent the demon's head flying. With just two moves, the two leaders of the Adventurers Guild had easily dispatched them. Lute, witnessing this scene, broke out in a sweat, silently admiring their extraordinary power. Lancaster turned back and ordered, "Quickly now." Following the command, the adventurers swiftly proceeded inside. Only Lute hesitated, kneeling beside the monster's corpse with a strange thought. I think this might be edible. He raised his hand and chanted, a flame igniting. Incinerate, fire magic principle. The guild leader, puzzled, widened his eyes. "What's this?" Lute then looked up and began to explain. It possessed extraordinary regenerative abilities, so I had to completely obliterate it. Without a shred of doubt, he turned and continued walking, venturing deeper into the cold, dark depths of the dungeon. Under the flickering light of torches, the adventurers walked side by side, discussing amongst themselves. It seems the evil energy has significantly decreased compared to before. It's very possible the nature of this labyrinth has changed. Lut turned to Alicia and said, "However, its shape and structure don't seem to be that different." She remained vigilant, reminding everyone to be cautious. We can't anticipate what will happen when we go deeper inside. Furthermore, even if the layout of the labyrinth hasn't changed, the monsters. Just then, a swarm of hideous spider monsters suddenly appeared before them. Simultaneously, as Alicia was still speaking, her words still hanging in the air. They will be even more ferocious and powerful than before. Facing the colossal leader of the monsters, Lancaster immediately stepped forward. "I'll handle this behemoth." The adventurers behind him instantly took up combat stances. "Everyone, choose a smaller one to deal with." Before the battle began, the guild master clasped his hands together, casting a spell. A brilliant green light suddenly appeared. "Warrior's glory." feeling the surge of power within them. The adventurers were filled with exhilaration. Is this a spell to increase our attack power? With this power, we can move and fight freely. In the next moment, the ferocious spiders charged, attacking all at once. The masked young man swung his sword with a powerful slash, cleaving a spider in two, sending its body flying. The others were no less valiant, bravely charging into the fray. A sword stroke, as sharp as lightning, sliced down, splitting the spiders in half. Alicia turned around with joy, calling out, "Loot, let's go." But then her eyes widened in surprise, looking towards Loot, who was smiling and raising his hand. Confusion was evident on her face. What is? It turns out the esteemed guild leader's support skills have backfired on him. The system panel suddenly displays a clear message. Abnormal status nullification skill has been activated. Warrior's Pride, the pride of Lancaster, has been completely neutralized. The ferocious, gaping maw of the monster shows no hesitation as it faces the imposing Lancaster. The seasoned warrior slowly draws his weapon. Lancaster raises his weapon high above his shoulder, a gleaming, sharp double-bladed axe. The monster roars furiously and charges straight towards Lancaster with terrifying force. Lancaster's eyes turn icy cold. He focuses intently, observing the trajectory of the brutal attack from the ravenous monster. After a moment of careful observation and meticulous analysis, Lancaster unleashes a lightning-fast counterattack towards the monster, drawing blood. Gunfire echoed, bullets flying everywhere. In a shadowed corner, the figures of Loot and Alicia flickered. The young man looked at his hand with an expression of utter excitement and exclaimed, "So my debuff immunity skill can even neutralize SAO's support magic?" Ravenous monsters, their mouths wide open, both large and small, now surrounded the group. A courageous man spoke up. "I'll draw their attention." As soon as he finished speaking, Summon slammed his sword into the ground and roared, "You greedy monsters, focus your attention on me. Come at me. Provoke." The monsters roared furiously and charged like a storm, relentlessly attacking Summon. Summon's face was tense, his muscles bulging. He growled, "Skill, power burst." A powerful surge of energy erupted, halting the monster's ferocious assault. "Shield, protect me." Ebert charged into the attack, his voice full of vigor. "My turn." He plunged into the enemy ranks with a burning fighting spear. Ebert's speed skyrocketed, launching him forward at lightning speed, piercing through the horde of ravenous monsters. A brilliant golden streak flashed from the Thunder Emperor Divine sword in his hand. Not just Ebert, but Purple also darted like lightning through the swarm of monsters, with his long, razor-sharp claws. Au, moving with flickering speed, spoke up. "These are the kind of enemies where you can't easily find a weakness." He immediately raised his hand, a mystical blue light gradually appearing as he said, "Use overwhelming force to crush them." The red-haired girl, and he simultaneously unleashed a fierce attack. Black Arrow Diamond Blast. A blinding light exploded before everyone's eyes, and with satisfied expressions, everyone said in unison, "Excellent teamwork." Meanwhile, the blonde-haired young man stood to the side, intently observing them. Suddenly, he summoned. The provocation skill's duration is almost over. He looked towards Ebert's group and warned, "Be careful." Siomon was still unaware of what was happening. In front of Francois, the ground suddenly started to churn as if some unseen force was digging up a horrifying creature from within the narrow cave. A gigantic centipede burst forth, its fierce, crimson eyes locked on Siomon. He gasped in astonishment. A monster lurking underground? Suddenly, a brilliant pink light flashed. The gigantic centipede's head was severed in an instant. Siomon was frozen in utter shock. He turned towards the source of the fatal attack and said, "I almost died." The pink-haired girl, seeing Siamon's expression, burst into laughter. "Couldn't you be a little more careful?" she teased, seeing how easily the girl took down the giant monster. Lute's expression turned serious as he thought, "She's strong." But that wasn't all. Their coordination was incredibly seamless, almost perfect. It was unbelievable that this was just a randomly assembled battle formation. The boy clenched his fists, thinking to himself, "I'm so useless. I can't do anything to help." Just then, the wide-mouthed monsters reappeared. They approached the carcass of the giant centipede. One monster crawled forward, its gaping maw wide open. It aimed its head at the severed body of the centipede. Lute watched the entire scene unfold before him, astonishment etched on his face. There, A viscous green fluid oozed from the monster's mouth. It coated the centipede's remains. At the same time, it began to burrow into the ground, burrow into the ground. Lute thought, so that's it, they're parasites. He raised his hand, and a shimmering golden magic circle appeared. Joy surged through him as he thought, I can do it too. Lute's attack resonated, drawing everyone's attention. Earth Demon Law. Countless sharp shards of rock, imbued with his overwhelming magic power, hurtled towards the gluttonous monster. Sensing the imminent danger, it instantly raised a gigantic centipede leg to block the attack. The gluttonous monster swung both of its pincers, creating a solid magic circle that stopped the onslaught. Witnessing this unbelievable sight, the young man was astonished. What's happening? Did it disappear? A completely new monster has appeared. It's a terrifying fusion between the gluttonous monster and part of the giant centipede's body. The earth dispersion skill, the ability to neutralize earth and rock, was suddenly activated. Behind the chairman, someone moved with lightning speed, delivering a fatal sword strike. His face showed a look of helplessness as he sighed. There's no other way but to sever its head. These pesky parasitic monsters, holding the sword in his hand with imposing might. However, his use of earth magic on the monsters, emerging from the ground, made his eyes flash with contempt. Truly foolish, the chairman added, causing Lut Zhao's face to fill with remorse. So, you also neutralized the honorary warrior? He recalled the recent battle. The images of Ebert and Purple flashed in his mind. Just as he said, he admitted to himself, I have absolutely no experience fighting in a large group. The scene of the summoner's support also made him ponder, and I couldn't receive any magical support from my teammates. A dark shadow fell over Lute's mind. He told himself, I'm just a burden. Suddenly, a voice called out, snapping him to attention. Hey, Ebert. With lightning-fast movements, he appeared right in front of Lute, and with a mocking tone, he taunted, seems like you can't keep up with the pace of this battle. A smug look spread across his face as he spoke arrogantly. Coordinating with teammates to defeat a powerful enemy is one of the basic principles of any adventurer. You may delude yourself into thinking you've defeated me, but in the end, you're nothing more than a cleaner of residual evil energy. An insignificant being like you truly doesn't deserve. His words were abruptly cut short when he met Alicia's furious gaze, as sharp as a knife. A deafening explosion, accompanied by a blinding light, erupted on the other side, causing everyone to turn their heads in that direction. Lancaster emerged from the wreckage. Seeing him, everyone cried out in unison. To reassure everyone, Lancaster immediately spoke, I'm all right. However, his eyes and disheveled hair betrayed a serious and worried expression. Lancaster spoke gravely. There's something far more important. His gaze shifted towards the ravenous monster with its gaping maw. They're infiltrating and parasitizing their own kind, merging into one colossal, wide-mouthed abomination. Staring at the horrifying creature, Lancaster explained, not only are its wounds completely healed, but its combat strength is increasing exponentially. The chairman seemed oblivious to the gravity of the situation, still complacent as he exclaimed, but now we only need to focus on a single target. There's no other choice, he declared with a grim expression. I'll join the fight. Suddenly, a strange object latched onto the chairman's neck, causing him to clutch at his throat. Seeing the creature clinging to his neck, the chairman's face was drenched in sweat, his fear palpable. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. Gazing at the tiny monster nestled in his palm, he thought to himself, I've made a grave mistake. The tiny creature clung to Lancaster's neck, slowly turning his skin a dull gray, hardening him into stone. Guild leader Lancaster realized the monster's true target, Ebert and his group. Ebert's body was also gradually being consumed by the terrifying gray, turning everything it touched to stone. Watching everyone around him petrify one by one, he concluded that the monsters were injecting a petrifying venom. Lancaster himself was now being overtaken by the diabolical gray, creeping across his body, inching towards his eyes. With his last bit of sight, he stared at the monstrous figure with its gaping maw. Now completely petrified, Lancaster was frozen in time. Ebert and Sumin met the same grim fate. Guild leader Cuckoo and Chrissy couldn't escape the tragic end either. Transformed into cold, lifeless statues, the monstrous figure with the enormous mouth gazed at the petrified group. A sharp blade suddenly materialized from its arm. The colossal monster raised the blade high in the air, launching a powerful attack towards the monsters. Ebert was suddenly turned to stone. The monster shifted its gaze to Lancaster, who was also being petrified, and a fleeting thought of regret crossed its mind. But their attack had completely failed when thin, spider-like threads suddenly appeared. At the same time, a mysterious voice echoed, "Control the threads." The monster, with its massive gaping maw, couldn't help but look up in astonishment. Luke quickly pulled the petrified people closer and said, "I made it just in time." The system suddenly issued a notification. "Abnormal status nullifying skill has been activated." The notification continued to ring out. "Petrification effect has been removed." Luke confidently said, "Leave this to me." Luke placed a hand on Alicia's shoulder. Another notification rang out. "Substitute skill used on Alicia." Alicia smiled and said, "Thank you." Luke whispered, "Let's go." His eyes flashed a brilliant gold as he activated the appraisal skill. Through a quick appraisal, a torrent of information about the gaping-mouthed monster appeared before him. After assessing the behemoth's parameters, Lutz spoke. "It doesn't seem to have any magical resistance. This is a bit tricky. Use magic to throw it off balance, so I can get close and attack." Alicia replied, "Understood." She raised her staff, preparing to cast a spell. Noemia, her eyes hidden behind a black blindfold, suddenly appeared. "Allow me to join the fight." A surge of azure energy erupted following her words. Noemia's eyes flashed with fighting spirit. "Let's go," she shouted. She unleashed a barrage of attacks towards the monster. "Take this." The monster didn't dodge, standing still, and taking Alicia's attack head-on. Bullseye. Alicia's magic struck the gaping-mouthed monster square in the face. It was sent flying backward by the tremendous force. The gaping-mouthed monster crashed to the ground, its massive body convulsing, to Lute and Alicia's utter astonishment. The creature transformed again, becoming a ferocious, crocodile-like monster. The monster possessed a gigantic, grotesquely distorted mouth, resembling that of an enraged, snarling crocodile. The monster's grotesque head tilted slightly to one side. Witnessing this horrifying sight, Lute and Alicia's faces were filled with utter disgust. "It's changing again? Unbelievable!" Lute exclaimed. "Disgusting!" Alicia uttered in revulsion. "I'll obliterate them all with a single blow," she declared confidently. The monster opened its gaping maw, and from within, a swarm of terrifying, tiny creatures poured out. This surprise attack was completely unexpected, putting Lute in immediate danger. Lute extended his hands, and pale yellow lightning bolts, like delicate threads, enveloped him. "Lightning shadow pool," he shouted. "Hold your sword tightly," Alicia commanded. Behind Lute, the ferocious face of a beast appeared, roaring with an earth-shattering sound. Thunderbolt jacket. A preemptive strike of incredible power reduces the lesser monsters to ash. Furious bolts of lightning incinerate the small creatures, leaving them smoking and scattered across the battlefield. Meanwhile, Lancaster remains completely petrified, unable to move. Tiny cracks begin to appear on his hardened face. The attack is quickly neutralized. The gaping-mouthed monster seizes the opportunity to counterattack. It moves with astonishing speed on all fours. Seeing the monster charging, Alicia and the boy quickly assume a fighting stance, ready to meet the challenge. Alicia raises her staff, which emits a soft glow. She calmly says, "How about this?" An orb of light shoots from Alicia's staff towards the gaping-mouthed monster, sending it flying into the air. The ground is violently plowed up, exploding into countless fragments. Her eyes following the airborne monster, Alicia says, "Now for a rear assault." Alicia charged into the attack, shouting, "Shadow step." The gaping maw monster, previously launched into the air, now began to descend. It displayed surprising agility. By morphing its form, sprouting enormous wings, these wings allowed it to perfectly control its descent and maintain balance. As it hovered midair, Lute seized the opportunity, swiftly swinging his sword and severing the gaping maw's head. Exhaustion was evident on Lute's face. He was spent and struggling to recover. The gaping maw, sensing Lute's weakness, immediately lunged forward, its gaping maw ready to devour him. Lancaster arrived like a whirlwind. As Alicia screamed in alarm, "Look out!" He managed to shove Lute out of the monster's path just in time, simultaneously launching a powerful counterattack. The terrifying, gaping-mouthed monster was slammed hard and imprinted onto the wall. When Lutz saw him, he gasped in astonishment. Lancaster, curious, turned his gaze towards his savior and hastily asked, "How were you able to break free from the petrification?" He turned back to the boy and replied, "I channeled the magic power within my body. Thank you for buying us time." The gaping-mouthed monster struggled, pushing against the wall, slowly crawling out and towards Lut. Lancaster's eyes darkened. He said coldly, "Now let's end this." Lut replied confidently, "Leave this to me." The blade in Lut's hand blazed with a brilliant fiery light. He thought to himself, "Channel magic power into my sword." The monster opened its gaping maw wide and lunged to attack. Its mouth opened terrifyingly wide, rushing right in front of Lut. His eyes focused intently on the monster, his eyebrows furrowed in determination. The ravenous monster, its gaping maw wide open, lunged ferociously but was suddenly stopped in its tracks by Lut's sharp blade. He swung his sword, cleaving the grotesque creature in two. The bisected monster fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Looking at his blazing blade, Lut pondered thoughtfully. "It seems I can now control the amount of magic power channeled into this sword." Alicia anxiously called out Lut's name. Hearing her call, he immediately responded, "Understood." Sharp claws suddenly sprouted from Lut's hands. He growled, "I won't give you a chance to regenerate again." A majestic, dark purple dragon materialized behind Lut, roaring with immense power. Poison spike monster. The gaping-mouthed monster was caught off guard by Lut's sudden attack, suffering a barrage of critical hits and screaming in agony. Witnessing the horrifying scene, Alicia cried out in worry. "The poison is spreading rapidly. Its regenerative abilities are truly terrifying." Lutz said confidently, "This evil dragon." Alicia interrupted him, her voice filled with gratitude. "If you didn't possess the ability to neutralize, to counteract those abnormal states, we would have been in grave danger." Lancaster approached from behind, his voice low. "Lute, are you going to reveal your secret to everyone?" Lute looked towards his petrified teammates, Ebert among them, and replied, "What should we do now? I can't solve this without a proper explanation, right?" Looking at the petrified summon, he spoke, "Indeed, and we can't keep hiding this secret forever. Go and heal everyone, Lute." Time passed in the dark night, illuminated only by a faint, flickering light. After undoing everyone's petrification, Lute stood before them and said, "And that's the whole story." Lancaster exclaimed, his face expressionless, unbelievable. "But after witnessing your performance earlier," Ebert, standing beside him, showed clear astonishment on his face. "Extraordinary!" Ebert exclaimed in astonishment. He stepped forward, grasped Lute's hands tightly, and said with a grateful voice, "I've lived a long life, but this is the first time I've witnessed such an incredible feat. It's truly astonishing." Lute's expression remained calm and unchanged before Ebert's praise. He replied, "Didn't you just say I wasn't worthy of being an adventurer in SAO?" Kreisai smiled brightly and said, "Don't worry about such trivial matters anymore. You're truly worthy of this Alicia title, Lute. You can actually eat the monsters in SAO?" Hearing Kreisai's question, Lute was stunned for a moment and didn't say anything. He picked up a monster, gave a friendly smile, and replied, "Wouldn't mind if I did a little cooking, would you?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lute began to process the two monsters into two bowls of fragrant, glistening meat stew that looked no different from a delicacy in a luxurious restaurant. Everyone who witnessed this scene was utterly astonished. They listened attentively as Lute instructed them on how to prepare the monsters. First, simmer each piece of meat thoroughly over a low heat until the meat is completely tender. Next, he used herbs to eliminate the gamey smell of the ingredients. Everyone gasped in amazement. "It looks incredibly delicious." Meanwhile, Lute was savoring the two monstrous dishes he had prepared, his face filled with satisfaction and excitement. "The texture and aroma of the cricket and rat are truly superb," he remarked, "and the wild chicken is crispy on the outside, tender on the inside." Witnessing this scene, the onlookers couldn't help but drool with envy. Suman, despite his own rumbling stomach, maintained his composure and warned everyone, "Hold on, don't let their appearance deceive you. Who knows if they're poisonous?" Lai chimed in, "But the aroma is truly enticing." Gola's guild master asked Lute suspiciously, "Strange, do you also recover magic power by eating these things?" Chewing with his mouth full, Lute replied to the old man, "As you can see, this isn't magic power, it's mana." A mysterious golden aura emanated from his body. The guild master furrowed his brow in thought. You say mana, but it doesn't carry the evil aura of the demon tribe, but instead seemed to radiate a certain sacredness. He turned to Lancaster. Lancaster, we don't have much information on the monsters lurking in this labyrinth. Should we retreat temporarily and await reinforcements? He replied, no. The longer we delay, the further this labyrinth's cycle will progress. After we finish this meal, we'll be full of energy. He clasped his hands in gratitude. Thank you for the wonderful meal. With such reliable comrades, we will surely conquer this labyrinth ourselves. After the meal, he and Alicia walked and talked. If the layout of this labyrinth hasn't changed, we should reach the boss's room soon. Suddenly, both of them stopped and exclaimed in unison. Everyone recalled the scene from earlier. The scene when they were running away and suddenly remembered something. Now that I think about it, we completely forgot about the ceiling collapsing. Lancaster said, we've come this far, but it seems there's no other choice but to go back. Suddenly, Lute remembered something and exclaimed, oh right, before we use your special ability, try landing a critical hit on the rubble blocking the path. Earth-shattering strike. Immediately, a blinding light flashed, astonishing everyone around them. Ebert and the guild leader exclaimed in unison, completely stunned. All the obstacles blocking the path vanished in a flash. Lute cheered, amazing. The door to the final boss room is right ahead. He turned around, grabbed everyone's hands, and shouted excitedly, let's go. The group stepped forward together and through the large door. Lute and Alicia gasped in astonishment at the bizarre creature before them. What is that? Before them was a gigantic, strange, spherical creature, emitting a brilliant light and covered in sharp thorns. Lancaster spoke thoughtfully. If I'm not mistaken, this is a dragon god egg. Lute spun around in surprise. Dragon god? How? Lancaster continued to answer his question. The image of a baby dragon appeared in his mind. I only know of its existence from ancient records. It is a legendary dragon. Immortal, forever cycling between the delicate boundary of life and death. Even if its body is completely destroyed, its soul will be reincarnated, reborn within a mystical labyrinth, a place that acts as a cradle, nurturing new life. Everyone around stood stunned, their eyes fixed on the strange egg. Even if its physical form crumbles to ash, the endless well of knowledge held within its soul will endure forever. Legend has it that it can even understand the language of humans. The old man continued the story, his voice thoughtful. They say it possesses a superior intellect, capable of seeing into the future. Suman cracked his knuckles, his face alight with excitement. But in the end, it's just an egg. He raised his fist, declaring boldly, we just need to destroy it before it hatches. Physical enhancement. Wait, Lancaster suddenly shouted, rushing forward. Suman was thrown back by the sharp thorns surrounding the egg. He coughed violently, a mouthful of thick black blood mixed with phlegm splattering out. He clutched his stomach and collapsed to the ground. His pain groans made his teammates rush to his side in a panic. They asked anxiously, Sir, are you all right? Suddenly, he sat bolt upright, trembling with fear. It's moving. The thorny vines that had been wrapped around the egg now stood upright, looking like monstrous legs. Everyone froze in terror, rooted to the spot, unsure of what to do. His teammates quickly helped Suman up. Damn, I was too careless. Lancaster spoke up. That's the egg's self-defense instinct. You should step back, even though it's just an egg now. It's still a true dragon. Suman struggled to his feet and said with difficulty. Meanwhile, Lut, with a worried expression, tried to remember something. This thing... He used his ability to examine the egg's information, but it was completely useless. Its power level is completely masked. Purple anxiously said to the chairman, I think we should retreat. Wouldn't it be safer to wait for reinforcements? The chairman replied to Purple just as the egg began to hatch. Even with countless S-rank hunters, we can't stop it. In this dire moment, everyone became serious, preparing to fight the dragon god's egg as it was about to hatch. Lancaster declared, we'll finish it right here. Support me. Crazy and Cuckoo began casting their magic attacks at the egg. Aim for its legs. Lancaster charged straight towards the egg as it was dodging the magical attacks of the other two. Seizing the opportunity, his face hardened with determination. Gripping his sharp axe tightly in both hands, the old man leaped high into the air, aiming directly for the monstrous creature's body. With a resounding crack, the axe blade tore through the air, severing one of the monster's legs, sending it crashing to the ground. Lut gasped in astonishment, his eyes wide with disbelief at the old man's incredible strength. The monster roared in fury, its scream a mixture of rage and agonizing pain. But even more terrifying, the two severed legs began a miraculous regeneration process. In the blink of an eye, the wounds healed completely. Ibos couldn't believe his eyes. The monster had fully recovered. Mr. Lancaster was filled with dread. His gaze was fixed on the monster's spike-covered limbs. How could it regenerate so quickly? He quickly turned and shouted Lut's name. He needed the boys' help immediately. Lut, I need your help with something. Inside the giant egg, the mysterious creature began to open its eyes. It let out an earth-shattering roar that stunned everyone around. They quickly raised their hands to cover their ears. Mr. Lancaster, without hesitation, the old man charged straight at the colossal monster. With a lightning-fast slash, he severed one of the monster's legs. But suddenly, another leg erupted from beneath the ground, tightly ensnaring the old man's leg. It's coming from underground, the old man worriedly thought to himself. Just a little more time. At that critical moment, the chairman and Ebert arrived just in time. They unleashed sharp sword strikes, severing the monster's leg and freeing the old man. I'm incredibly grateful for your help, the old man replied with gratitude. This time, the old man was filled with determination. He unleashed a powerful slash, knocking down a series of the monster egg's legs, causing it to lose balance and stagger, unable to stand firm. Seizing the opportunity while the egg was still disoriented, Alicia shouted, "Now's the time." The creature inside the egg was startled, looking out in alarm. Its face was filled with rage. You think you could defeat me with just a sword? The sword was imbued with all of his magical power. Before I could finish, he suddenly leaped forward, a long sword blazing with magical power in his hand. With a single, powerful swing, the sword sliced down the center of the giant egg, splitting it in two. The egg glowed crimson as the light from the sword pierced its thick shell. Ebert and Lancaster stared inside, their faces filled with excitement. All right, inside the egg, the form of the monster slowly began to emerge from behind the shattered shell. Alicia suddenly realized something was wrong. She shouted, "Its main body is unharmed." "Say fine." She commanded her spirit to appear. A deafening explosion erupted as she unleashed her full power, aiming directly at the egg in front of her. She wanted to stop it before the monster could make any moves. Smoke and dust billowed after her fierce attack. Everyone shielded their faces with their hands before looking back at the egg. It remained completely unscathed. Guild Master Gola screamed in terror. The creature regenerated just before the wind blade could strike. We're at an impasse. Suddenly, the surroundings were plunged into thick darkness. What is this? What is this terrifying chill? Everyone trembled in fear at the sight before them. Everything around them began to warp and distort. The giant egg suddenly burst into flames. It roared furiously, emitting a terrifying, blinding light. Ebert shielded his eyes as the egg began to show strange signs. Inside the egg, the creature began to open its mouth, revealing razor-sharp teeth staring at the team. It glared at the group with murderous intent. Alicia looked up in horror and gasped. The dragon god is about to hatch. Lancaster bellowed, "We don't have much time. We have to end this now." Everyone around him looked towards him. "We will finish it with a single blow." Its regenerative ability is an immeasurable threat, but its legs are its critical weakness. His words trailed off as the old man suddenly recalled the moment his sharp blade struck the colossal monster's leg. "We need a coordinated attack to create even the smallest opening," he commanded loudly. The guild leader responded immediately, "Right? I'll take the ones on the right." Ebert quickly added, "We'll handle those on the left." Chrissy eagerly volunteered, "Leave the monsters in the front to us." Alicia calmly replied, "We'll take care of the ones directly ahead." Everyone sprang into action, each to their assigned task, charging towards the roaring monster, without hesitation or fear. Suddenly, countless razor-sharp spines erupted from the bottom of the enormous egg. The monster began launching these sharp spines, aiming directly at the oncoming attackers. Ebert and Purple froze for a split second, quickly dodging the deadly projectiles flying towards them at breakneck speed. Chrissy instantly used his magic to cast a magic barrier. A powerful magical shield materialized in front of Lancaster, blocking all the incoming spines with tremendous force. Amidst the chaotic battle, he suddenly glanced towards the defensive line. She bravely stepped forward, her voice firm. "I will protect you. Focus all your energy on attacking." Lancaster, deeply moved, said, "I am eternally grateful." He raised his battle axe high and roared, "Charge! Amplify your magic attacks. Everyone's next attack will have its power doubled." Alicia reminded her teammates, "Lancaster has cast Amplify. Get ready." As she chanted a spell, she said, "But how can we determine the right moment to destroy that monster's legs?" Lutehead spoke confidently. "Leave that to me." He began to summon his special ability. His eyes suddenly turned a mystical blue, glowing brightly. Behind him, the image of a colossal creature began to materialize. He raised his hand and called out, "Commander's skill." Instantly, his powerful energy surged into the minds of everyone around him. He asked in a resounding voice, "Can everyone hear me?" Ebert was overjoyed to hear his familiar voice, directly into his own mind. Chrissy exclaimed excitedly, "What an extraordinary ability!" Lute used his ability to communicate his thoughts to everyone. "We're going to destroy its legs." As soon as the countdown ended, everyone shouted in unison. Lute began the countdown, each second ticking by. Everyone around was ready to unleash their own magic. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All of the monster's legs were severed in that instant by the combined power of everyone. Lute watched intently and then yelled, "Now's the time." Lancaster had finished channeling his power, ready to join the battle. He roared, "Void Annihilation." The egg exploded from his earth-shattering power, creating a gaping hole in its center. Monster blood erupted everywhere. The egg was completely destroyed before the eyes of the entire crowd. Mr. Lancaster breathed heavily, savoring the taste of glorious victory. Suddenly, he collapsed from exhaustion, having expended too much magical power. The chairman quickly caught him. "Though I hate to admit it," Mr. Lancaster whispered weakly, "without everyone's combined efforts, we could never have subdued that arrogant monster. It's truly humbling." Cuckoo rushed to Summit's side to inform everyone. Fortunately, it seemed his life was not in danger. Lute cheered jubilantly, his voice echoing everywhere. "This is a victory that belongs entirely to us." While everyone was still basking in the joy of victory, Purple stealthily hid behind the monster's leg and muttered, "Oomph, foolish rejoicing." He turned his head, greed flashing in his eyes. "Now's the time to seize the dragon's magic stone and reap a massive profit." Massive! He rummaged around frantically, then exclaimed in alarm, "What the hell?" Anxiety gripped him. "The magic stone? Where's the magic stone?" Suddenly, a tail covered in sharp spikes erupted from his back. He spun around in horror, staring at the grotesque appendage. The sharp tail lunged forward with lightning speed. It impaled Purple, piercing straight through his chest. He screamed in agony, collapsing to the ground. A colossal creature with razor-sharp fangs suddenly materialized before him. It muttered, "This reincarnation is another failure, but not entirely useless." Its massive feet slammed into the ground. "This body cannot be sustained much longer. I will have to wait for the next reincarnation." It glanced at Lut, who was talking with his teammates. "But first, these insects dare to interfere with my revival. They all must die." Its eyes blazed with unbridled fury. The guild leader suddenly sensed something was wrong. He quickly drew his sword and shouted a warning. "It's not over yet." The horror hadn't faded. The monster's presence still lingered. The monster suddenly materialized before everyone's eyes, its entire body drenched in gruesome, fresh blood. Before them stood a colossal monster, grotesquely large. Lut hastily used his special skill to read the creature's information, but all his efforts were in vain. He stammered, trembling with fear. "Ow, how is it still alive?" Alicia replied with a calm voice. "Perhaps it dove into the ground the moment the attack was launched." The monster roared furiously. "Insolent! You dare! Only humans have the right to challenge the Lord." Let's stared in shock at the screaming monster. "That monster, is it talking?" Lancaster's face was etched with worry. He quickly explained, "That's a true dragon, the leader of the dragon clan, a pure-blooded dragon, a creature. The creature closest to a god and capable of understanding human language." The monster continued, its voice a deep, resonating rumble. "I sense a repulsive presence among you humans. Those humans Something in human form, yet carrying the blood of demons. It stood tall, its massive arms outstretched. Entertain me. Amuse me with your struggles. Make me tremble. Make me despair. Chrissy paused, lost in thought for a moment. Two of her fingers began to glow with an ethereal, magical light. I'm sorry, but this is all I can do for you. Skill, shadow cloak. Skill, shadow cloak. By cloaking yourselves in the darkness, you will become completely invisible. As soon as she finished speaking, Chrissy vanished without a trace. Suddenly, one of the monster's arms abruptly fell to the ground. To everyone's utter shock, the monster let out a terrifying roar, its eyes fixated on its own hand. It was beginning to disintegrate, crumbling into small pieces. The sight was enough to make anyone tremble in terror. Looking up at the decomposing monster, someone cried out in horror. Lancaster watched the monster anxiously, unease etched on his face. If we're going to engage it, he muttered, now is the time. He thought to himself, I just wasted my strength needlessly. I usually prefer to recover my energy before a fight, but Siomon stared at the self-destructing monster in a panic, consumed by terror. What in the world is that monstrous creature? I can't face it. I have to get out of here now. With that, he immediately bolted towards the gate they had entered through. Seeing this, the monster raised its hand, unleashing its terrifying dark magic. You think I'll let you escape? Telekinesis. He used his supernatural ability to snap the surrounding pillars. Gripping the broken pillars, he hurled them towards the fleeing Siomon. He frantically piled up all the pillars he had just acquired to block all the escape routes of the people in front of the old man. You will not escape from this place, even with only one arm. Do you think I'll have any trouble eliminating a little rat like you? He cast his magic as he threatened. Old man. Cast gripped his axe, his voice as hard as steel. If we can't escape from here, then the only thing we can do is show you just how terrifying a cornered rat can truly be. With a roar, everyone charged towards the colossal monster. The battle for survival had begun. Each person unleashed their own unique fighting style, attacking in their own way. Lute and Lancaster aimed for the monster's spiked tail. The guild leader and Ebert focused their attacks on its massive back. Lute and the guild leader shouted as they struck. Our attacks can't pierce its defenses. The monster effortlessly dodged their fierce attacks. It seemed to be toying with them, playing with each swing of their swords, each blow they landed. The monster narrowed its eyes in contempt, its voice dripping with sarcasm. Is this all you've got? Give me a better show. With a furious roar, the monster unleashed a surge of dark power. Its ultimate technique, heaven-splitting impact, was unleashed. The monster's terrifying power erupted in a shower of crimson sparks, knocking back everyone nearby. Yudo was thrown back, crying out in pain. Witnessing the scene, Alicia gasped his name, Yudo. She rushed to his side, anxiously asking, Yudo, are you all right? He struggled to sit up, replying, I'm okay. But that last fight drained almost all of my energy. Without hesitation, Alicia glanced back, seeing the monster preparing for another attack. She shouted, Yudo, I'll finish it in one blow, with all my psychic strength. Quickly warn everyone. Yudo replied, right. Yudo immediately used his special ability, transmitting a message to everyone around them. Everyone, listen up. We're launching a full-scale attack. I'll send the signal, so quickly get out of there. The chairman, after hearing this, nodded in understanding. Back at Alicia's position, she closed her eyes and began to harness her power. Everyone around me, lend me your strength. As she finished speaking, the scepter in her hand gathered all the energy from everyone into it. On the other side, the colossal monster was moving. It broke off huge pillars and hurled them toward Alicia's teammates. At that moment, Alicia finished gathering energy and called out Yun's name. Yun, use your power and signal everyone that it's time to fight back against this terrifying monster. Now, Spirit Dance. Alicia channeled all her power into a direct attack on the monster. In a blink of an eye, the monster was hit by Alicia's earth-shattering burst of energy. It landed a direct hit. A terrifying explosion erupted. Ebert's face paled. Is this the end? He stammered. But right before their eyes, the colossal monster, even with its limbs severed, was still breathing. It was alive, glaring at them with burning hatred. The guild master, maintaining his composure, said slowly, not yet. The fight isn't over. The monster roared furiously, raising its remaining arm to strike back. Its mouth contorted in a scream of rage. It seems I underestimated it, he muttered. Alicia watched the tense scene unfold with worry. Suddenly, Lancaster charged forward from behind like a whirlwind. He raised his massive battle axe high, aiming for the monster's head, ready to deliver the final blow. But the monster spotted Lancaster just in time. It slammed its massive tail into the old man, sending him crashing to the ground. Lancaster! Gugu screamed in terror. The young boy rushed forward, using his special ability to bind the monster. Damn it, you have to stop. Giant vines, conjured by Gugu's power, erupted from the earth, constricting the monster's body. At that moment, Ebert leaped high into the air, his sharp sword raised, ready to finish the monster off. What's happening? Suddenly, a shattering sound echoed. Unfortunately for him, the monster reacted in time, spinning around and snapping his sword in its jaws. Ebert's face was etched with horror, lost in thought. I could have sworn I attacked it from its blind spot, a perfect angle. Ebert was sent flying by a powerful swipe of the monster's tail. The vines wrapped around its grotesque body began to fall away. The monster used magic, lifting rocks and debris into the air. It spoke with contempt. Pathetic weaklings like you can't stop me. You are merely an annoyance. With that, it hurled the rocks towards CUCU. With that, it launched the sharp rocks towards CUCU with terrifying force. From afar, Alicia witnessed everything. She cried out in terror, but no sound escaped her lips. In her despairing eyes, images of her beloved comrades flashed before her, had fallen and died tragically before her eyes, and she could do nothing. The girl was lost in painful memories, tormenting herself that it was all her fault for not being strong enough. This tragedy would never be allowed to happen again. She had to be strong enough to protect those she loved. After taking down Alicia and her comrades, the monster whirled around, staring at the girl with menacing eyes, its killing intent chilling to the bone. Fear and despair welled up in her eyes. Listening to the monster's final threats, it suddenly showed a rare moment of respect. I will slaughter them all and use them to nourish my intellect. Lutta knelt on one knee, his face a mask of frustration and annoyance. We're no match for it. The two stood before a bizarre statue, silently pondering if we could buy some time and escape through the magic circle at the center of this maze. Suddenly, Lute's face was filled with terror. He quickly raised his hand to stop them. He shouted, unleashing his energy manipulation skill. His eyes turned sharp, a flash of confusion crossing them. What monstrous creature was blocking his path? He stood facing imminent danger, powerless to do anything. Anxiety burned within him like a raging fire. Lute's skill hadn't activated yet. Could it be that Lute had exhausted his energy? The ghastly green monster, with its horrifying form, was destroying everything. The damage was immense. Countless casualties mounted. He gritted his teeth, frustration and helplessness overwhelming him. But a sliver of hope remained. A thought flashed through his mind. At this rate, we'll all be wiped out. I have to find a way to help him recover his energy. But how? Suddenly, Lute noticed something strange. A thick, viscous liquid was oozing from the eggshell. He paused in thought, then took a deep breath as if trying to calm his nerves. The ferocious green monster unleashed a scorching blast of fire. Alicia's face was etched with worry. She quickly commanded her Shine Fight spirit, the guardian angel, to charge towards the ferocious monster. At the same time, Alicia's attack power significantly increased. Suddenly, Chairman Gola materialized out of thin air, joining the battle. He brandished his sharp sword, slashing fiercely at the monster. The blade whistled through the air. The battle raged fiercely, brutal, with neither side giving an inch, true to the nature of earth magic. Suddenly, a mystical blue light erupted from the ground, radiating a mesmerizing beauty as it sliced through the air and even the water bullets. The light beam attacked Alicia with terrifying, relentless force. At the same moment, Chairman Gola, pointing his sword forward, narrowing his eyes at the hideous monster. The two sides faced each other in a tense standoff. Guild Master Gola wondered, why does it possess such a diverse range of skills? The hideous monster looked at the two and roared, how about this? In the monster's hand, a brilliant emerald green light erupted, forming a stance ready to welcome the battle. Witnessing this, Gola's guild master, Thursday Lau, squeezed his eyes shut, unable to look directly, but still muttered, this is the absolute, unreasonable power of Lancaster. Thoughts raced through his mind. Could this be the power of the dragon that governs intellect? He squinted, turning to Alicia to continue. But it must have a weakness in its defense. If we counterattack now, At this moment, Alicia also became resolute, determination filling her as she responded resolutely. I will support you. She began to raise her weapon, summoning the power of the sacred Wakian mistletoe. On the other side, Chairman Gola also acted, gripping his sword tightly, closing his eyes, and chanting an incantation. The rain sword Thunderblade. And then he gripped the hilt tightly, with a courageous and reckless expression, charging straight forward. The ferocious monster lunged, roaring, "Take this!" The monster's livid face was truly gruesome and terrifying. Chairman Gola, with blazing momentum, charged him like a moth to a flame. But it was in vain. He seemed to realize something, but it was too late. "Damn it! A trap!" he screamed. An excruciating pain spread throughout his body. With a single blow, the monster pierced through his body. Blood sprayed out, dyeing the surrounding space crimson. A mouthful of crimson blood immediately gushed from his mouth. Witnessing the horrifying scene, Alicia couldn't help but gasp. Her face was etched with shock and fear. Chairman Gola collapsed to the ground right in front of the monster. Alicia, still in shock, stared with wide, terrified eyes. Suddenly, Alicia's spirit was drawn away by a mysterious force. It was the monster controlling Sinfire. He muttered, furrowing his brow, "A rare soul. I wonder how it tastes." Without hesitation, Alicia reached out to stop him. He opened his mouth terrifyingly wide. Alicia's reflection could even be seen within its depths. Then, with a horrifying gulp, the monster swallowed the poor Sinfire whole. Alicia was still reeling from the shock. All her attempts to intervene had been in vain. She collapsed to the ground, the pain choking her, leaving her speechless. The colossal monster slowly advanced towards Alicia. Its razor-sharp claws sliced through the air before her. It was so massive that a single fist could crush her. A menacing threat echoed in the air. Normally, offensive skills are used to confront foes stronger than oneself. It creates a critical weakness, and the price is an immense source of power. It pierces its own body with sharp claws, lifting Alicia into the air. How unnecessary to use this against such weak, insignificant rats like you. Do you know why I use such a cowardly, deceitful tactic? Alicia's eyes began to well up with tears, pitying the small soul of his brethren. The monster smugly continued his interrupted story. He wanted to fully savor the expression of utter despair twisting on the girl's face. He looked at Alicia with a greedy gaze, intending to devour her as he had done with Shin. The cruel creature uttered his final words. "Now, let me test the flavor of an elf." The monster opened his sharp jaws, preparing to tear Alicia apart. Sticky saliva splattered everywhere. Luffy suddenly appeared, delivering a critical punch to the hideous monster. A valiant attack that saved Alicia from the jaws of death. After the powerful blow, Luffy half knelt on the ground, head bowed, gasping for breath. Alicia anxiously called out Luffy's name. Then his eyes suddenly blazed, and he let out an earth-shattering roar. The monster recoiled in shock, realizing one of its eyes was injured. A critical wound. Luffy had ravaged half its face. Blood gushed forth relentlessly. Yet, the monster remained eerily calm. It glared at Luffy, its body radiating murderous intent. A truly broken body. Lut, still with his head bowed, let out a soft moan. He had completely lost control. The monster continued in its previous tone. "So, you ate my eggshell and transformed into a monster? An immense power is surging through my body." From afar, Alicia remained deeply worried about it. "Are you all right?" But suddenly, he sprang up with a loud roar, attacking Alicia with terrifying force. She couldn't withstand the immense power and was flung away, crashing into the wall. His eyes now glowed crimson, and savage growls emanated from his mouth, ignoring Alicia, who had collapsed from the blow. Witnessing the horrifying scene that had just unfolded, the monstrous creature suddenly realized something. It spoke in a mocking tone. "I understand now. It's truly laughable that you can absorb such immense energy, yet you cannot transform into a monster. However, you won't be able to resist for much longer. You're not even worth the effort." Lut bowed his head low to the ground, letting out soft groans. He felt as if his body was being burned by a raging fire. A sense of terror washed over Lut. He felt like he was losing himself. He feared his body wouldn't be able to endure any longer and would crumble into ashes. A close-up of his face showed his extreme agony. Chaotic and anxious thoughts flickered through the boy's mind. He was about to be consumed by this raging fire. Suddenly, a sound echoed from somewhere. As Lut was drowning in a sea of flames, Crazy unexpectedly appeared behind him. She smirked, a mysterious smile playing on her lips. Your ability to control energy is truly beyond expectations. She gently placed her hand on Lut, using her power. Let me help you tame it. With that, she gently patted his shoulder. After that light touch, Lut's eyes flew open as if he had just woken from a nightmare. He placed his hand on his chest, feeling the energy coursing through his body. I did it, he thought to himself. He could feel the power surging within him. The monster's eyes widened as he looked at Lut. Disbelief etched on his face. What? That crazy guy again? A cruel smile spread across his face. He gripped his sword tightly, pointing it directly at Lut. Go finish off that dying lizard. Lut stood frozen, seemingly lost and confused about who he was. Unexpectedly, the giant lizard responded. You dare call me a god? A dying lizard? The lizard lunged forward, its mouth wide open, revealing rows of terrifying teeth. It raised its sharp claws and attacked, roaring furiously. You insolent, lowly insect, Chrissy. His expression remained calm as he watched the foolish lizard overestimate its strength. He muttered, nerds are so easily riled up. The two factions, good and evil, clashed in an earth-shattering battle. Without hesitation, he seized the opportunity, swinging his sword down in a fatal blow. The lizard, its body, now torn in two, was mangled beyond recognition. Lut stood there, proud and cold. Crazy laughed triumphantly, letting out a gleeful sound, still within the gloomy darkness. The remaining members of the group leaned wearily against the cold wall. Each one was covered in wounds. Lut tried to channel his energy, healing the Gola guild leader. He gritted his teeth, his eyes sharp as he looked at everyone, and said, his wounds are too severe. Chrissy added to Lut's words. Everyone in the squad, except for you and me, is seriously injured. We have to heal them quickly. Even Lancaster is unconscious. Suman and Cuckoo are exhausted as well. Chrissy looks at Ebert with a worried expression and continues. It will be difficult to move with so many injured. We need to wait for reinforcements. They'll bring everyone into town, or we leave here and seek help from others. But just then, Lut suddenly opens his eyes, a dazed expression evident on his face. A sharp pain suddenly appears, like thousands of needles piercing his chest, causing Lut to clutch his chest. Then he lets out a cry of pain. Chrissy stands with her arms crossed, looking down at Lut, as if she had anticipated this. She coldly remarks, it seems you're suffering from a severe backlash within your body. Maintaining her indifferent expression, Chrissy continues, I helped you suppress the energy within and temporarily increased your strength, but your body has reached its limit. Suddenly, a voice rings out, carrying the distinct electronic tone of an AI. Both Lut and Chrissy turn around simultaneously. The sound came from a slain lizard, that cursed creature. You will not return alive, it growled menacingly. Even as it lay dying, the monster still tried to roar its threats. At least, the lizard's bleeding eyes began to roll back in its death throes. It struggled to continue. You will come with me. Chrissy looked at the monster with hatred and disgust. Suddenly, everything around them began to crack and shake violently. Luth immediately realized the danger. He cried out in panic. The labyrinth is collapsing. Chrissy added, that creature is taking over the entire dungeon. Large and small rocks began to fall from the ceiling of the cave. A voice called out in worry. We have to get out of here now. As soon as the words were spoken, Luth saw an imminent danger. Giant boulders were falling directly toward Alicia. Luth immediately rushed towards Alicia with incredible speed to save her. He screamed in terror, Alicia! Fortunately, Luth managed to grab Alicia and pull her out of the deadly area. It seemed Alicia also felt the brush of death upon her. Slowly opening her eyes, she saw Lut and weakly called his name. Lut responded with a panicked, trembling voice. We defeated that cunning dragon. We're all safe now. We can leave. Alicia had barely escaped with her life. Coughing weakly, she struggled to speak. We beat that treacherous dragon. We can all get out of here. Seeing her state, Lut worried. Hey, are you all right? Despite her exhaustion, Alicia managed a weak smile. She said to Lut, I don't have any magic left, so I don't think I can move. But a moment later, her expression turned serious, her voice firm. Lut, you have to leave. By yourself. Lut was stunned, his shock evident. What are you talking about? Suddenly, Alicia yelled, "Damn it! If you don't run now, you'll be buried alive down here." She looked at Lut, the young man still consumed by grief and sorrow for his fallen comrades. Lut responded, his voice filled with despair. "There's no way out. I can't abandon my friends." Alicia looked at Lut, her eyes filled with helplessness, and sighed. She seemed to have given up all hope, her words of final farewell. "I love you, but you're making a mistake." Lut didn't understand, calling after her in vain. Terror and anxiety began to consume him. At this rate, we're going to be buried alive. If only Lut could just take Alicia and escape. He thought of his comrades, those who had fought alongside him throughout the arduous battle. But to leave the others behind, Lut couldn't do it. His conscience wouldn't allow it. He had to find a solution, a way to save everyone. Alicia's face darkened. She pleaded with him. "Lut, please, I beg you, just go." Her voice trembled, choked with despair. "I can't." Alicia suddenly yelled at Lut, desperate for him to leave the dangerous place as soon as possible. "I already did this." Her eyes glistened with tears, hot drops rolling down her cheeks. Because it was their wish, because they knew. Lancaster urged Lud, picking up where Alicia left off. "Run, go." Lud suddenly turned and called out Lancaster's name. "You keep going, as long as he's still a true adventurer. Losing comrades is inevitable on this path, and it will happen again and again." Lud's face momentarily became somber. Lancaster's voice grew sterner. "If those chosen by fate cannot overcome this trial, what do they have to be proud of in death?" The cryptic words left Lud stunned, lost in thought. In this moment of dire peril, several bizarre, gigantic monsters suddenly appeared. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are about 6 of them, with gaping maws full of razor-sharp teeth, closing in. Ebert materialized seemingly out of nowhere, assessing the situation. The monsters in the maze had gathered in one spot. Lut, utterly astonished, spun around and yelled, "Ibby!" The young man had regained his composure. He roared out orders, commanding everyone to take a fighting stance, swords drawn and ready to engage the enemy. "No one will die. I won't let that happen." Alicia leaned against the cold wall. Struggling to get up, her body covered in wounds, she shouted towards Lut. "Run, Lut! That giant-mouthed monster is attacking. You just cut off its arm." Lut retorted to Alicia, "I won't run." His sword remained firmly gripped in his hand. His voice was filled with determination. "I always thought of Mizesa as nothing but a garbage cleaner. Until now." Lut's eyes flashed with contempt as he mentioned Alicia. "But when you invited me to join your team, and when you accepted my secret, I truly felt happy." Hearing these words, Alicia was speechless, unsure of how to respond. The scene shifts to a place filled with joy and laughter. Images flash like a film reel, rewinding through Lutz's cherished memories. A wave of nostalgia washes over Lutz. "The moment everyone on the team accepted me, I was truly overjoyed." Lancaster and Ebert also appear in the flashback. His words hung heavy in the air, leaving everyone lost in thought. Lutz continued to pour out the thoughts weighing on his heart. "To abandon my comrades, the ones who accepted me, trusted me, entrusted me with this responsibility." Lutz cried out in agony, his voice a tortured echo from the depths of despair. "How could I ever do such a thing?" He sank into distant memories, ones he thought long buried. The warm voice of a soldier from years past echoed in his ears. "Hey there, young man." The soldier smiled kindly at him and said, "No matter how difficult, no matter how painful, never give up." The soldier's stern yet loving face seemed to comfort the young boy. Let's snap back to reality. The word from long ago resonated within him. He mustered all his strength, his sword flashing as he sliced through the oncoming monsters. Never give up. Witnessing the scene, Alicia couldn't help but worry about Lutz. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. Both Ebert and Alicia gasped, their eyes wide with shock. Ebert exclaimed in horror. A massive horde of ferocious monsters, emerging from some unknown abyss, suddenly launched a brutal attack. Even the scrawny lizard from earlier joined the fray. Lutz, with unwavering courage and determination, faced the danger head-on and roared, "I will never surrender." The colossal monster opened its gaping maw. From within emerged a grotesque tongue, tipped with another, smaller mouth. The sight was truly horrifying and terrifying. Lutz bravely charged forward, engaging the monstrous horde in battle. He swung his sharp sword, ready to tear the vicious creatures apart. But life isn't always a fairy tale. The monstrous tongue, with its gaping mouth, shot out from the beast, aimed directly at Lutz. Lutz sensed the imminent danger, a deadly threat. In that critical moment, he dropped his sword. A colossal tongue, lined with razor-sharp teeth, clamped down on Lutz's arm, sending blood spraying everywhere. The monstrous tongue tightened its grip, lifting Lutz high into the air. Alicia screamed Lutz's name in sheer terror. Lutz gritted his teeth, his face contorted in pain, but his will remained unbroken. He would not surrender. With a surge of determination, Lutz threw himself towards the ground. Even his one arm was severed by the monster's bite. His automatic wound cauterization skill activated. He landed with an impressive thud, tightening his grip on his sword. He refused to yield. His regeneration skill kicked in. His severed arm instantly regrew. Gripping his sword with both hands, he was ready to fight. The monsters began to sense the danger. Adrenaline surged through him, restoring his spirit. With a roar, he charged. His sword plunged into the grotesque creatures. The brilliant aura of the hero shone brightly. His battle cloak billowed in the wind. Attacking relentlessly, he pleaded silently, his face a mask of determination. "Please, let this all end." The monsters fought back ferociously against his relentless assault, but he had only one desire: to end it all as quickly as possible, to annihilate them all, leaving no survivors. A razor-sharp claw from monster suddenly lunged out right in front of it. Eliminate all the monsters. The attack from the monsters sent the spoils flying. Suddenly, a giant hand appeared from behind, catching the loot. He was still stunned as he looked at him. The valiant captain of the left-wing Lionheart squad, Leonis. Leonis smiled with satisfaction and praise. "Well done." The bald man reassured him. "Don't worry, we'll make it back alive." He and Leonis were in a precarious situation, surrounded by the most ferocious monsters. But Leonis, the brilliant captain, seemed to have victory in his grasp. Failure in the resurrection process. And he's being controlled by another monster, too. How pathetic. The ferocious demons relentlessly attack without pause. Terrifying dark tendrils reach towards them, as if to tear them apart and devour them. Anxiety surges. Danger is imminent. Oh no! Leonis shields him just in time from the terrifying dark tendrils. But the demons won't let their prey escape so easily. Good and evil clash once again in a fight to the death. Their powers collide in a fierce stalemate. Suddenly, Leonis touches the golden monster's head. A flood of memories rushes back. Orochi, Dragon of Wisdom. Do you remember? The story flashes back to the distant past. The image of a magnificent golden dragon appears before his eyes. He recounts the earth-shattering battle from 5 years ago, when he fought a desperate battle against this majestic golden dragon, past and present intertwined. Leonis continued the unfinished story. With an appearance like a descending deity, you pushed us to our very limits. Leonis's face was pensive, his gaze profound. He looked at the hideous monster before him and witnessed it in this cruel present. And now look at you. The ferocious monster couldn't bear another word. It immediately went berserk, roaring madly, shut up, giving them no chance to counterattack any further. Captain Leonis, with a cold expression, swung his sword, cleaving the monster's massive body in two. Lut witnessed the horrific scene that had just unfolded. He was stunned, speechless, his jaw agape in astonishment. A glorious scene of triumphant victory finally appeared. Lut secretly admired the man before him, a true S-rank warrior. After accomplishing the feat, he lightly placed his sword on his shoulder, breathing a sigh of relief. That was close, but the rocks in the cave kept falling relentlessly. Lut's face turned grave as a new danger emerged. Alicia was still trapped beneath the rubble. The falling rocks hadn't stopped. She was hanging by a thread. Alicia, with a panicked expression, yelled towards him, warning him of the imminent danger. The entire purgatory area was engulfed in a sea of ice. As a massive chunk of ice nearly struck Alicia, it abruptly stopped in midair. Lut had arrived at Alicia's side just in the nick of time, saving her. Alicia was still disoriented, unsure of what had just happened. The collapsing ice, the wrath of Sao, all of it had stopped. What technique was this? And then an AI voice seemed to ring out. It was Serena. She was grumbling about the monsters that had just been ascended. A horde of grotesque monsters groaned and moaned disgustingly. Serena's face was filled with disgust. Leonis smiled at Serena and offered his sincere thanks. Serena continued to complain to him. Leonis was always impulsive and hasty. Lut looked on in bewilderment. Two other newcomers agreed with Serena. They were members of the Lionheart Wings team. I share Serena's opinion of Leonis. Serena turned to Lut and Alicia. It seemed she recognized a familiar face. Alicia happily waved in greeting. She excitedly chatted with Alicia, her close friend whom she hadn't seen in a long time. It's been ages since we last saw each other. Alicia reached out to Serena and softly called her name, Serena. Still irritated with the monster Leonis, Serena continued her endless complaining. "Good heavens, you guys are a mess," she exclaimed. She ordered August stand back. "Heal everyone immediately." August readily obeyed, eager to help. "Leave this to me," he said, and began to cast his magic. The incantation echoed. "Holy light shines, healing all." August stood tall, his hands raised towards the sky in a commanding pose. A magical light emanated from his hands as if he were casting a spell. The incantation continued to echo. The throbbing pain in their bodies gradually faded away. Both Alicia and Lancaster felt this miraculous change. Ebert was deeply impressed by August's extraordinary ability. He approached him and exclaimed in astonishment, "The range of this healing magic is incredible." August gave a gentle, warm smile and focused his energy on healing the Gola Guild leader. August slowly brought his hand, radiating magical light, closer to the guild leader's wound. A high-level soul healing energy was channeled. After being healed, the guild leader's complexion gradually returned to a healthy pink. His breathing also became more stable, completing the treatment. August turned to inform and advise everyone. "I have healed everyone's wounds. However, your physical and magical strength has not fully recovered yet. Let's take a break." Then, looking in another direction, he said in a low voice, "However, there's someone who seems to have turned to stone, leaning against the cliff wall." August D. seemed to be referring to this person. "Those who have lost their souls cannot be brought back to life." Leonard rallied everyone's spirits, shouting, "Now, let's escape this labyrinth." The members of the Lionheart Squad began to help everyone out. August also enthusiastically helped everyone. Leonard carefully instructed, "Any AI who cannot move, rely on others." There's another member of the squad, incredibly strong, carrying 3 people at once. As he helped Alicia up, the two exchanged a warm smile. Looking back one last time at the bloody, tragic scene, they felt no lingering attachment. Ben spoke up, "Let's go home." The group finally escaped the deadly labyrinth. As night fell, they stopped to build a campfire and rest. Leonis, holding a golden gem in his hand, slowly spoke. "This is a fragment of Ophanim, the soul of the dragon that represents wisdom." The gem emitted a mesmerizing, pale golden light. He continued his interrupted explanation. "After a long period of time, it will restore its soul and be reborn." Leonis began to recount the legend of Orochi, the dragon of knowledge. The dragon, representing profound wisdom, was defeated by our Lionheart Wings technique last year. The captain stared at Leonis, words still pouring forth. The dragon's soul was sealed at that time and kept under strict guard in the royal capital. Listening to Leonis's story, Lancaster still couldn't quell his doubts. "But why would it revive in Verona, such a remote town?" He replied with an impassive look. "Recently, the royal capital's archives were breached by that AI." Lancaster was stunned, unable to believe what he had just heard. "What?" Leonis's voice grew low and grave. "The revival of the Dragon of Knowledge. This intelligence is actually just an artificial phenomenon, elaborately constructed within this labyrinth, and all under the control of a sophisticated AI system." A look of suspicion flickered in Lancaster's eyes. He seemed to have partially guessed the truth. As expected, elsewhere, Serena and Alicia were reminiscing about their carefree youth. Serena glanced at Alicia, a hint of regret in her eyes. "It's a shame. If Alicia joined our Lionheart army, we would be unstoppable." Alicia humbly replied to Serena, "My strength has greatly diminished. Furthermore, my goals are different from yours." She confided in Serena, "This quest has made me realize my own weakness and helplessness." Serena remained silent, unsure of what to say. Meanwhile, Leonis suddenly thought of Alicia. After all, Serena couldn't convince Alicia and her companions to approve and offer their heartfelt blessings to her friend's decision. Alicia was always a strong-willed and stubborn girl. Once she made a decision, It wouldn't be easily changed, but I'm truly happy she found her own happiness. Thank you, Alicia replied with a radiant smile towards her friend. Serena suddenly turned to the group of men standing nearby and whispered, "Look at the members of the Lionheart Squadron. Rumor has it that Lute is a cold and selfish leader. That Joe often clashes with August. August is a strong, silent type, and that bookworm always acts like he knows everything." "Serena, you're showing too much male hormones," Alicia teased in a low voice. "Oh my God, I'm going to die." Leonis quickly reminded her to keep her voice down. "Serena, please calm down. You're making Alicia's friends uncomfortable." Yul sat silently, observing everything happening around him. Finally, he spoke. "When I was young, I lived in Tena village, a small village located in the east. You saved my life back then." Yul began to recount the story of how Leonis had saved him. Yul's voice became firm and louder, filled with indescribable emotion. "Perhaps you don't remember that day clearly, but in my heart, you are my hero." Leonis still seemed to be... Memories of the past suddenly came flooding back. What happened to that young man all those years ago? Then he looked directly at Lut, a knowing glint in his eyes. "You never gave up hope, did you?" The scene shifts to Serena and Lut. Every word Leonis spoke was filled with deep meaning. This girl, she saw everything. I wish I could have gotten there sooner. The regret of not being able to save the other villages still weighed heavily on her heart. August leaned back against the tree trunk and continued slowly. That's why. She developed a habit of being hasty and impulsive in everything, and that's a serious problem. Leonis stood up, flashed a bright smile, and extended her hand towards him. She expressed her sincere gratitude. "Thanks to your quick thinking, the damage caused by the labyrinth phenomenon was significantly reduced. You are a truly remarkable adventurer." Without hesitation, Lut stood up and shook Leonis's hand. A friendship, a brotherly bond, filled with deep affection. Earning praise from the left-wing captain, Lionheart Leonis. "You're too kind, Captain," Lute replied humbly. "Don't be so modest," Lancaster said, unexpectedly beckoning Lute closer. Lord Lancaster gazed pensively into the flickering flames, a look of concern crossing his face. "I've been deeply worried about the recent unrest in the royal capital," he said slowly. "I'm considering increasing security measures for Verona, and I plan to establish a new guard unit." The image of someone he deeply trusted flashed through Lancaster's mind, and then he made his offer. "I want to entrust you with the command of this guard unit. What do you say?" Lute froze, a look of astonishment on his face. "Me? Command a guard unit?" Serena smiled at Leonis, who was watching Lute intently, awaiting his answer. All eyes turned to Lute. Alicia, too, was taken aback by the trust Lancaster placed in Lute. The flickering firelight danced across Lute's face. He responded seriously. "That's a very generous offer, but I must decline." Lancaster was silent for a moment, as if waiting for Lute to offer a clearer explanation. After a period of silence, when Lute didn't say anything more, he spoke. "I understand. I will respect your decision. However, may I ask why?" Lute frowned, recalling what had transpired during the recent expedition. He couldn't hide his dissatisfaction with himself. "During this adventure into the labyrinth, I became acutely aware of my own inexperience and shortcomings. Within myself, Lute and Squad 5 went through countless fierce battles. My teammates were injured. I was even thrown around by monsters multiple times and had to rely on the help of others." Thinking of this, he hesitated, clenching his fists, tormenting himself. "I realized that if I'm not strong enough, I won't be able to protect my teammates." Alicia listened intently and silently to Yul's heartfelt words. A hint of sadness flickered in her eyes. Yul stood up straight, looked directly at Leonis standing opposite him, and called out loud, "Leonis!" Leonis's face was etched with surprise at being called out. Yul declared boldly, I choose to become an adventurer because I've always admired you. My skills are still far inferior to yours, but..." He poured his heart and soul into his vow. "I will definitely become stronger and fight alongside you." Then, Yul turned to Alicia, whose wide, innocent eyes resembled those of a lost fawn. He made a promise to Alicia as well. "Alicia, we will conquer the deep labyrinth together." A radiant smile, brimming with joy, bloomed on her face. Alicia pumped her fist in the air, a gesture of enthusiastic support. Her smile brightened even further. "Okay. I'm counting on you." His comrade, Lancaster, closed his eyes, accepting his fate. Indeed, they both still had responsibilities to bear, goals to achieve. Luth shared his plan with Lancaster. I plan to leave Verona and embark on an adventure, and I will use this power to train myself to become stronger. Suddenly, August appeared right behind Luth and whispered with amusement, "How interesting." August's sudden appearance made Luth's hair stand on end. He seemed to sense something unusual. His sharp eyes glanced at Luth, and he remarked, "A strange power, completely different from your magic. This is demonic energy." August's eyes narrowed, gleaming with danger and curiosity. Demonic energy cannot exist stably within a human body. August grabbed Luth's chin. A delighted smile spread across his face, as if he had just discovered something truly special. He asked Luth, "You've consumed a monster, haven't you?" Leonis's eyes widened in astonishment. Lancaster was also stunned, his face filled with astonishment, perhaps because this information was too unexpected. Serena's expression immediately changed. Her eyes narrowed at Lute as she yelled, "Everyone get back. He's dangerous." Immediately after, she launched an attack. Countless shards of ice, sharp as daggers, suddenly materialized out of thin air, all aimed directly at Lute. August quickly dodged Serena's attack, but Lute remained motionless, not even trying to evade. Serena tensely asked Lute, "Hey, is what he just said true?" The sharp ice shards hovered inches from Lute. One of them grazed his throat. Lute gritted his teeth, cold sweat dripping down his face. Serena said coldly, "Your life depends on your next answer." August raised his right hand and sighed casually. As expected, it's magic light. His 6-tier green light can control plants. August stomped his foot on the ground, and the roots beside him immediately trembled and burrowed deep into the earth. Suddenly, they burst from the ground, right beneath Serena's feet. The unexpected attack made her scream in shock. The roots quickly intertwined, forming a sturdy cage, trapping Serena inside. August placed his hand on the cage of roots, tried to calm her down. "Serena, calm down." Curses echoed from within the cage, showing how agitated she was and how difficult it was for her to stay calm. Serena tried to stick her head out between the massive roots, her face furious as she loudly demanded, "Why is eating monsters a taboo? It's unacceptable." August smiled gently, explaining why he stopped her. "It seems he's an exception. I don't sense any signs of him turning into a monster." He continued, "Actually, I don't even sense any evil energy from him, although I still don't understand why." As I watched August try to reason with Serena, the one who ended up bearing the brunt of her anger was Lute. He was forcing a wry smile, standing silently in the corner. Leonis walked over to Lute, sincerely apologizing for his teammates' reckless behavior. "Lute, I sincerely apologize for Serena's rudeness." He carefully explained the reason, clarifying why they took this matter so seriously. "Actually, we're pursuing the thieves who broke into the treasury beneath the capital." Serena was no longer as agitated as before. She resigned herself to being temporarily detained and listened intently as Leonis spoke up in her defense. "Based on the magical traces left at the scene, we believe that yokai may be involved in this incident." Lute understood that if he didn't explain everything clearly, it would be difficult to clear up the misunderstanding. He spoke seriously, "I will recount the entire event." Moments later, in the quiet forest by the flickering firelight, after listening intently to Yul's story, Leonis seemed to have understood. "I see," he said softly. By now, Serena had been freed. Alicia sat beside her, gently comforting her and soothing the turbulent emotions within Serena. Everyone sat around the flickering fire, listening to the story. Leonis pondered thoughtfully. "So that's how you survived in the poison village," he remarked. "Immune to disease. That's a rare ability." August nodded in agreement. "Exactly. This is the first time I've heard of such an ability, but it makes perfect sense." Serena remained melancholic. She hung her head in remorse. In a dejected voice, she said, "You lifted the abyss curse from Alicia. And also," she started to continue, but Yul gently interrupted, comforting her, "It's okay. It's just a normal reaction." Suddenly, August approached Yul. His eyes lit up with excitement like a scientist studying a rare specimen. "Especially, Yul, you can absorb monster flesh and replicate their skills." Carefully observing the newly formed knot, August stepped back and leaned against an ancient tree. He turned and swayed slightly, a pensive expression on his face. "In other words, just because he can eat a sea monster doesn't mean he can breathe underwater." Leonis, also participating in the lively discussion, stroked his chin thoughtfully. "He can absorb skills, but he doesn't inherit The monster's physiological traits. Behind August, someone nodded vigorously, clearly agreeing with this point. A sudden thought struck him. He turned to Alicia and asked, "Do you eat monsters?" Alicia was startled. What are you talking about?" she thought. "Eat monsters?" The image of deliciously grilled loot meat flashed through her mind. The monster meat looked so tempting. Back then, she was so hungry that her mouth nearly watered. Note, remove the Russian phrase and replaced it with a suitable English equivalent. Alicia quickly waved her hands, trying to dismiss those embarrassing images. She stammered in response, "Of course not. I've never even thought about it." Worried that Alicia might be confused, Leonis quickly elaborated. "Actually, besides that, there's something else I've been wondering about. Could consuming monster flesh and absorbing their magic power potentially increase her strength?" Alicia seemed to miss Leonis's point. "What are you talking about? That's taboo. What if eating monster flesh turned you into a monster? What then?" However, Leonis seemed serious about the matter. He carefully voiced his thoughts. What if she could recover through a process of monsterization, like using a substitute medicine? Alicia suddenly understood. She made a small sound in her throat, but said nothing more. Then Lut spoke up, his tone decisive. "That's impossible." He frowned, his expression serious as he addressed the topic. "There are two possibilities when consuming monster flesh. There are only two paths: become a monster or die." August pondered for a moment, then said, "I understand. So, instead of transforming into a monster, there's a chance the body will decompose." Lut recalled his own experience. Then, he continued his story. "The first time I devoured a monster, an immense surge of energy coursed through my body. With such an overwhelming power, I couldn't control it, of course. And just as you said, I completely lost control." Lut's eyes were filled with burning resentment. "I almost lost all sense of reason. At that time, only one thought remained in my mind: revenge. Revenge against those who betrayed me. I fought with everything I had to maintain control of my body." Having finished his story, Lut added an important detail. "Now, I no longer experience any side effect from absorbing energy." Demon King August observed Lut intently and remarked, "So your body has fully adapted to the magic." Recalling the previous rejection, Lut offered more information. "Furthermore, there have been cases in the past where the substitute was consumed by the magic." Leonis fell silent, absorbing this unusual information. "I understand. There's still so much about magic that we don't understand." August concluded, "In summary, it seems we shouldn't interact with it carelessly." Suddenly, Leonis's expression shifted. He remained silent, not saying a word. He stood up and looked at Luth with a suggestive gaze, wanting to talk about that power. "Can you show me that power?" Leonis gripped the hilt of his sword. "I understand the theory, but there's still so much we don't grasp about magic, if we want to truly understand it." He looked intently at Luth. "Shall we let our swords do the talking?" Faced with Leonis's provocative challenge, Lut couldn't help but feel a twinge of anxiety. His opponent clearly possessed power that far surpassed his own. Leonis drew his sword, a look of pure excitement on his face as he spoke of the coming duel. "After all, we are both daring adventurers." In the stillness of the night, within the tranquil forest, a strange sound suddenly pierced the silence. The eerie noise echoed through the woods, startling a herd of horned rabbits. The level 8 horned rabbits seemed to have sensed something amiss, baring their fangs and claws in a display of aggression. It turned out that Leonis and Andrew had quickly closed in on them. Their sudden appearance made the horned rabbits tremble in fear. Their eyes held a pitiful look, as if begging for mercy. In a flash, the scene changed. The aroma of roasted rabbit meat, seasoned with herbs. While enjoying his meal, Lut expressed his sincere gratitude. Chewing with his mouth full, the boy continuously showered the food with praise. "This is amazing. I think I've absorbed 10% of a rabbit's jumping ability." Seeing Lut's enthusiastic eating, Silrina spoke up. "That's not fair at all." Unable to hide her own hunger pangs, she exclaimed. "This can't be," she complained. "Normally, we have to use items or rest to restore our magic power." Alicia, also feeling quite hungry, replied, "Recovering magic power by eating is so convenient." After finishing his meal, the boy regained his energy. He confidently declared, "All right, my magic power is fully restored." Seeing this, Leonie curiously asked him, "Are you sure you're okay after eating all that?" Lut quickly replied with a thank you. "Actually, I'm feeling fantastic." Then August, while casting a spell, said, "Well then, hidden god, teleporting the target to a different dimension, a place overflowing with the life energy of plants. No artificial intelligence can penetrate this isolated space, and it's only activated when permission is granted by the person being teleported. He politely gestured with his hand. Well then, please, both of you come in. The boy immediately obeyed, stepping through the dimensional gate. The beautiful scenery, the peaceful and cool air inside, left him stunned. Then, August firmly stated, "No AI can disturb us here." With a flick of his wrist, he created a small flame. Then, August generously continued, "You can freely unleash your power as you wish." As if liberated, Leonis removed his cloak and spoke. Now, focusing his energy, he eagerly asked, "Shall we begin?" As soon as he was ready, Leonis declared, "Don't hesitate any longer." The arrogant declaration and the surge of overwhelming magic power completely stunned Lute. His eyes flew open, and he swiftly summoned a gigantic bee. This terrifying attack, instead of intimidating Leonis, only seemed to excite him further. From the moment Morpheus activated his skill, it was clear he possessed the ability to control the monster's power. Leonis instantly raised his sword and unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks, giving his opponent no moment to breathe. Lute charged towards Jiangdio with blinding speed. Fortunately, Leonis managed to slice through the thick web of spider silk just in time. He roared out a challenge. "Is that all you've got?" Suddenly, a blinding light flashed from the other side, catching Leonis completely off guard. By the time he realized what was happening, Lute was already preparing to attack from behind. The paralyzing breath attack was unleashed, leaving him with no chance to react. Leonis effortlessly countered the attack, casually mocking how naive. He smirked confidently. "A simple trick like this couldn't even scratch me." While Leonis remained completely composed, dominating the fight, Lute seemed to have reached his limit. He unleashed a barrage of attacks at Leonis, desperate to end the match quickly. Witnessing this, Leonis remained unfazed, calmly analyzing. "You rely too much on skill, and your movements are clumsy and inflexible." Lute froze, stunned by Leonis's words, confusion evident on his face. "But the paralysis effect, why didn't it work?" Leonis calmly replied, refuting Lute's statement. "No, it worked. Seasoned adventurers like myself have a much higher tolerance than ordinary people." In a flash, Leonis swung his sword, sending Lute sprawling backward. His voice rang out, signaling the end of the match. "It's over." At the critical moment, Lute secretly activated a skill to increase his defense. However, it seemed to have no effect on the terrifying power of Leonis. The powerful blow sent Lute flying with a cry of pain. Before Lute could recover, Leonis slowly approached and explained, "Many monsters possess immunity to certain diseases." Leonis continued to advise, "Don't rely too much on your skills." Lute seemed to ignore his words and stubbornly charged forward. Witnessing this, Leonis frowned, annoyance evident on his face. "Are you mocking me?" Without hesitation, Leonis immediately counterattacked. The powerful attack sent Lute crashing to the ground, groaning, "It hurts," despite being beaten badly. Lute refused to give up and struggled to sit up. Leonis' expression remained unchanged as he exclaimed, "Oh dear." Observing the situation, Leonis wondered, "Are you channeling magic into your sword?" As if to confirm his suspicion, Lute quickly leaped into the air. "So you decided to use the horned rabbit's ability, huh? You just absorbed it and you're already using it?" No hesitation whatsoever. Leonis grew even more excited. The rabbit's skill from before. "This little brat possesses some truly interesting powers." While I was leisurely observing, Lute mustered all his strength, preparing to unleash a fatal blow. The ground beneath their battleground suddenly erupted violently. The earth-shattering explosion startled August. The clear sky, from moments ago, was now obscured by a thick cloud of smoke. Beneath the dense smoke, Leonis had defeated Lute. But with such a reckless attack, "You won't be able to do anything to us." Despite his recent victory, he remained calm. "Your monster skills may be powerful, but you lack close combat skills. That last attack could probably only take down a giant monster." He paused for 2 seconds. The blinding light from Leonis's sword reflected in young Lute's astonished eyes. Leonis quickly helped Lute up and continued his lesson. "But in a real fight against a person, that move won't be effective." Lute obediently nodded in agreement. "Yes, sir." Then Leonis extended his hand and asked a question that surprised Lute. "Have you heard about this before?" Leonis explained as he demonstrated for Lute. Let the source of power, your magical energy, flow throughout your body to increase your physical strength. Leonis's words triggered something in Lute's memory, his eyes widening in surprise. Immediately, images from the past flooded his mind. From that day on, Lute gradually understood how to control magic. He remembered the feeling from years ago, as if he had just realized a fundamental truth. Lute closed his eyes, feeling the flow of magic coursing through his body. Though his words said one thing, Leonis's expression couldn't hide his delight. Without even observing directly, he quickly grasped the essence of the method. Leonis exclaimed in astonishment, "You learn incredibly fast, despite only just receiving the knowledge." Lute was brimming with enthusiasm and passion, like a flame reignited. He earnestly pleaded once more, "Please, teach me more." Without hesitation, Leonis readily agreed. "All right, give it your all. Show me everything you've got." Witnessing the burning fighting spirit of both of them, August couldn't help but chuckle in amusement. They then threw themselves into relentless training, diligently honing their skills. Outside the barrier, Alicia was lost in thought, when suddenly a sight caught her attention. It was the moment Leonis helped Lute emerge, Lute's body, covered in wounds, yet a bright smile adorned his face. Leonis praised Lute, as expected of an S-rank adventurer. "I was completely defeated." He recounted the match without hiding anything. "Your diverse skills and amazing adaptability gave me quite a few scares." Lute, deeply moved and speechless, simply called out to Leonis before anyone could react. He quickly bowed his head in deep gratitude. "I sincerely thank you." Despite Leonis's indifference, Lud persistently explained. "He pointed out my weaknesses and my bad habits in combat, right? You trained me." Anduis Lu spoke for the first time, his voice slow. "You know Leonis is clumsy." Upon hearing that, he immediately retorted, "As if we would do that for you." Anduis Lu's voice surprised him. He thought to himself, wow, he actually spoke. Soon after, August stepped in, interrupting the conversation, leaving Lute filled with questions. "Anyway, Lute, about you absorbing that monster, make sure you don't reveal this to anyone." His tone was gentle and soothing, but his words revealed shocking information. "If the royal family discovers this secret, you will surely be sentenced to death." Hearing this terrifying warning, Lute was shocked and horrified. However, despite the death sentence, August calmly explained, "The closer we get to the royal capital, the greater the church's power becomes. For them, the Bible is the foundation of faith, the absolute truth. And consuming monster flesh is considered a taboo, an unforgivable sin." Lute quickly interrupted August. "But with my abilities, I can hide it, can't I?" August maintained a slight smile and replied calmly, "Even if that's the case, acting against the commandments of the Bible is still a grave sin." Under Alicia's watchful gaze and Serena's stunned expression, August continued, "They're just priests with narrow perspectives, unable to grasp the true nature of the matter." The young man asked curiously, "What about you? What do you know about this secret? Except for the brave explorers who dare to conquer the mysterious labyrinth. This time is different." Hearing this, Lute quickly replied, "No, I understand how taboo that is." He sank into deep thought. "Until today, besides Alicia, I've kept this secret from everyone." Lost in thought, the image of doom suddenly flashed in his mind. Immediately afterward, Lute let out a loud cry. Both he and Alicia remembered something important. They both shouted doom. The scene shifted to the city center. Doom stood there, holding a gleaming sword, his face full of pride. "After all my tireless research, it's finally complete." The group, along with Alicia, entered the bustling Barona pub. The dwarf's hammer rang out with sharp, decisive blows. He said sternly, "I don't care." While everyone was laughing and having a good time, Doom firmly declared, "Even if it's taboo, I don't care what other people eat or drink. Don't worry, I won't dwell on it any longer." Suddenly, he lowered his head, his voice deepening with unusual gravity. A somber Doom gritted his teeth, his words carrying a heavy weight. "After asking me to forge that sword, you now say you don't need it?" His fury forced the young man to his knees in abject remorse. "I apologize for asking." Despite Lute's repentance, Doom continued slowly, "A sword that cannot be destroyed, even if imbued with magic." I faced a challenge, difficult in its own way. Darkness seemed to thicken around him, and finally I completed it. Witnessing this, the young man broke out in a cold sweat. "He's furious." She trembled as she replied, "Of course he's angry. Soon after, Doom spoke, making a request. Can you fulfill a request of mine? Without hesitation, the old man immediately nodded in agreement, regardless of the condition. Joy slowly spread across his wrinkled face. Could you let me touch that sword? His face beaming. Doom's unconcealed joy and excitement made Lut pause for a moment. No. Lut looked at the crimson circle on the sword as he stopped the old man. This is a cursed sword. Anyone who touches it will go mad. His explanation seemed to fall on deaf ears. Even if you ask me to throw it away, this is still my only request, and I haven't complained about anything else. Didn't you say you would grant me anything? In desperation, Duan resorted to threats. I heard you have the ability to heal others, right? Is that right? Lut persisted in his explanation, facing the old man's stubbornness. It's too dangerous. If you lose consciousness, the replacement might be rejected. Doan completely ignored him, firmly stating he wasn't concerned. If he were to be possessed, he insisted they should destroy him along with it. Doan's stubbornness left the boy feeling helpless. Don't say such reckless things, he blurted out. Immediately after, he scratched his head, pursed his lips, and pondered. With no other options, he dejectedly extended his hand behind him. All right, if you insist, he said. Alicia, surprised by this decision, called out, Are you really sure about this? Meanwhile, Doom stood prepared. I've been a blacksmith for many years, he mused, but I've never seen a weapon capable of absorbing magical energy, or morally. This is a worthy opponent to bet my life on. He reached out and accepted the sword. Well then, the moment he held it, Doom recognized the sword's distinct nature. This is no ordinary steel, with an inquisitive spirit. He couldn't stop uttering words of awe and admiration. A mysterious darkness seemed to reside within the cold, sharp blade. It seemed to possess a life of its own, a vibrant soul. This was an exquisite sword where madness and beauty intertwined in a strange harmony. I've never witnessed anything like this, he said, as if mesmerized. Doom stared intently at the crimson circle on the sword's hilt. Incredible. Magical. Is it truly alive? He continued to marvel, and a new goal began to form in his mind. Someday, I will forge a sword like this. Suddenly, he froze, as if he had seen a horrifying sight. His mind lost in another world. Damn thought, this is... Suddenly, he opened his eyes wide, yelling in delirium, Kill! Kill! The ghostly sound continued to echo, conjuring the image of a ferocious demon with blood-red eyes, tightly gripping a frail, white-haired person in its hand, as if about to break their neck, appearing before Dam's eyes. Kill, kill, kill. The murderous aura emanating from the sword seemed to make the old man tremble. A fatal blow landed with lightning speed, surpassing ordinary reflexes. Recalling his sword, he cast a replacement spell. He gently patted Doem's shoulder, asking with concern, Doem, are you all right? The old man seemed still shaken from the fright. I apologize for making you indulge my selfish desire. Sweat beaded on Doem's forehead as he pondered deeply. That illusion, what was it? He immediately spoke up, reassuring everyone and dispelling their worries. I won't reveal anything, because that could hinder your path to success. So rest assured. Doem's voice rang out, firm and resolute. I will also forge a sword that surpasses even that one. The scene shifted to the forest. Lut exclaimed, This is so relaxing. He turned to Alicia, curiosity evident on his face. Did you really manage to rent all of this? She replied with a bright smile. For years, I've lived a life constantly on the run. So it feels incredibly relieving and joyful to finally experience a moment of peace. Luke casually added, Besides, having Sinfit and Nomia drive the carriage is a perfectly reasonable decision. Alicia quickly explained further. I could arrange for a different driver, but considering Lute's appetite, the boy quickly gazed into the distance and asked, So where are we going? What kind of town is Ischia? The young girl described it enthusiastically, as if the town's scenery was unfolding before their eyes. The azure coastal town of Ischia is a vibrant place, famous for its thriving fishing and trade industries. Then, Alicia excitedly shared their travel plans. We have 2 goals in Ischia. First, Lute needs to learn 10 new skills. While she was engrossed in her story, mythical creatures seemed to gradually materialize before them. The mystical labyrinth. The temple, deep beneath the sea near Ischia, is home to countless bizarre monsters, completely different from the creatures in Verona. You'll have the chance to acquire many special skills from the boss of this level, the Scissors King. who possesses an incredibly powerful ultimate skill called Steel Body. Lup immediately grasped the key point and curiously asked, Steel Body, is that an upgraded version of the Iron Skin skill in SAO? Hearing this, Alicia confidently replied, even the strongest attacks from high-level adventurers can't pierce through that defense. I remember struggling quite a bit against his incredible toughness. She quickly returned to her busy schedule. Second objective, the revival of Undine. As Alicia finished speaking, images from the past flashed through Lutko's mind. Despite his astonishment, Lutko continued, the underwater labyrinth is where Undine was born. By reviving Undine, my power will also be significantly increased. His eyes followed the curious little fish as he spoke. So this is Eudia? But wasn't it eaten? Alicia patiently and gently explained. Spirits don't exist in their original physical form, so even if they're injured, they don't completely disappear. She continued, playfully fiddling with Eudia in her hand. We need to restore its energy in the labyrinth under the sea, so that Eudia can regain its true power, right? Alicia's voice suddenly trailed off, hesitant. It turned out she was feeling incredibly hungry. Ischia is famous for its delicious seafood. Alicia suddenly remembered something and exclaimed, oh right, when we left Verona, didn't August give you something? Lut replied, prompted by Alicia's reminder, is it this? He quickly pulled out a book that looked quite old. Looking at the book, Lut paused in thought, reminiscing. What is this? August gently asked. This is a diary passed down by Count. Being a specialist in monster cuisine research, the young boy Lut curiously asked again about monster cuisine. He gently replied, perhaps this knowledge will be useful to you later on. Hearing that, Lut was incredibly grateful and repeatedly expressed his thanks. Thank you so much. Suddenly, Leonis stepped forward and affectionately put his arm around him. Lut, I have high hopes for you. Immediately, Lut was moved beyond words. In his mind, the image of Leonis from the past came flooding back. When they strolled together through the quiet forest, the memory continued to appear vividly, their lively conversations filled with unending laughter. Every piece of caring advice and guidance unfolded before his eyes. As dusk fell, it was time for the two to say goodbye. The warm handshake between Lut and Leonis seemed to express all the affection and respect they had for each other. Afterwards, both of them, Lut and Alicia, happily waved goodbye. The Lionheart Knights. Back in the present, the boy was intently observing his hands. The girl, her curiosity piqued, wouldn't let him off the hook. He had never considered adventuring with Leonis and other companions. He hadn't dared to imagine it even once. Immediately, he was overwhelmed by confusion. What was she talking about? Noticing his bewilderment, she teased him relentlessly. You're suspiciously worried. Completely overwhelmed, he gave in. Can you give me a break? Their peaceful moment in the dense forest was shattered by a terrifying roar. A girl, her face pale with fear, collapsed to the ground. Moments later, a man, drenched in sweat, turned around and yelled. Run, he screamed, even as a monster squeezed his throat. Despite this, he struggled to break free. The girl remained frozen, seemingly unable to react to the man's warning. Just as danger loomed, vicious goblins ambushed from behind. She seemed completely helpless, unable to defend herself. Facing the horrifying demons, she could only scream in despair. The ferocious boar seemed